Chapter 997, The Fall of Lichen Cities. In no time, the infected left were only small in number and would be completely erased soon. However, even with all these, Gradius Inatus was well aware that should Red Shadow fail, all these reinforcements would only be delaying the inevitable, the fall of Lichen City and all of its residents too. "I'm coming with you," Gustav stated after Gradius Inatus voiced out his intentions of heading back just in case Red Shadow needed help. "No, I need you to remain here and man the wall," Gradius Inatus said while shaking his head. Gustav turned to the left to stare beyond the wall. "There's already more than enough reinforcements on ground to handle the current number of infected here," Gustav voiced in response. "Still, I'll be better if you remained here and take command of the officers. If things end up going bad, I'm sure you will be able to hold the lines till I return," Gradius Inatus stated while tapping on Gustav's shoulder. "I'm faster than you. I'll get to him way earlier than you can." "Let me come with you," Gustav replied with a resilient tone. He felt since they were on a topic of time and speed, it would be best for him to go with, or even go alone. Fair point, but Gustav. Gradius Inatus was about to refuse again when Gustav sensed something. "Wait," he voiced out with a tone of urgency. "Huh?" Gradius Inatus uttered as he noticed Gustav's odd expression. "Hover has been activated." Gustav suddenly ascended into the air with extreme speed. Gradius Inatus didn't have the ability to fly, but he had a flight device strapped to his feet. He activated it and flew up as well. "Kid is fast. I guess he wasn't wrong," Gradius Inatus thought as he tried to reach Gustav's current height in the sky, which was quite difficult. "What's wrong?" Gradius Inatus voiced out as he reached Gustav's height in the sky. "He failed," Gustav answered while staring downwards with glowing golden and red eyes. "What?" Gradius Inatus voiced out with a tone of disbelief. "He failed to stop it," Gustav repeated with a grave tone as he turned to stare at Gradius Inatus. "The millions of infected are on their way," he added, causing Gradius Inatus to be overcome with a feeling of dread. "Oh, what about the mixed breed?" This question slipped out of his lips as his face shone with an intensely troubled expression. "I don't see any," Gustav was responding as he turned to look downwards. Up ahead, once more before suddenly turning silent. He could spot a gigantic figure over 100 miles ahead within an uncountable swarm of infected. This fit the exact description Gradius Inatus had given him earlier. "It's coming as well," Gustav confirmed as he retracted his sight. "This city is done for," he added. 20 minutes ago, Gildian City. Now, there's no way you will be able to give out any commands," Red Shadow voiced out as he sighed in relief. In front of him now was a man in dark and silver technological suit. He also had a slightly cracked helmet put on, and some red shadows could be seen connected to his. They were currently at the foot of the mountain red shadow-bound BJ2. Behind them, the hordes of infected, which numbered in the millions, could be seen. It turned out this was the last culprit, and Red Shadow had managed to bind him here after defeating him. The technological suit he currently had on was so advanced it made him invisible and completely erased his presence earlier on, which made things a little difficult for Red Shadow. However, with Red Shadow being a seasoned veteran in the field of completing dangerous missions, he managed to use his experience and sharp intuition to bring the last culprit down. Cough, cough, "I see, and I was so close to completing the last phase too," the man in the suit voiced out with a few coughs. "You have amassed quite the number of infected. Tell me," Red Shadow squatted in front of him as he spoke. "Will they ever move without a command?" Red Shadow inquired. "They want," the man in the black and silver suit responded. "Good. Where is the corpse of the creature you plan to revive?" Red Shadow asked. The last culprit was unable to move his body, but his eyes shifted to the side, revealing that he was staring in a particular direction. "Underground over there," Red Shadow voiced out as he turned to stare in the same direction. "How did you manage to?" The man in the suit was speaking when Red Shadow interrupted. "We got the rest of your comrades, too. BJ told me there was an underground space in that direction. Surely you must have seen that I have him bound up there just like I did to you down here," Red Shadow added. The last culprit had a look of defeat as he stared down. Red Shadow stood upright at this point and turned around to stare in the same direction. "You're the last one, and luckily I was able to get you before you gave the command," Red Shadow voiced out once more as he began taking steps forward. "Who said I was the last one?" The man in black and silver suits suddenly voiced out. This chapter is updated by Friedenville CM. Red Shadow paused his footsteps at this point, as a sense of foreboding washed over him. "What do you mean?" Red Shadow eyes squinted as he questioned. "Who said I was the last one?" His lips curved into a mischievous smile as the man in black and silver suit repeated the same question. Red Shadow's eyes suddenly widened as he turned around to stare forward. Swoosh! The instant he sped forward, a loud voice spread forth from invisible loudspeakers. "Trample upon the lands and overrun the next city you encounter on your way southwards." Swoosh! Red Shadow had gotten into the underground entrance and was speeding down a tunnelway, but it seemed like it was too late. Destroy everything in your path, regardless of what it is, and await further instructions upon overrunning the next city. Chapter 998 Doom arrives. Bang! A loud blast suddenly resounded across the area as the speaker stopped making sound. Red Shadow had gotten hold of the person who was responsible, but the deed was already done. Currently, the millions of infected on the surface had began to move according to the command they had been given. Bam, 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 bam. Numerous feet trampling upon the ground reverberated across the vicinity as these infected charged forward. The ceiling of the underground area trembled repeatedly as dust drizzled down. Within a space with multiple technological equipment and holographic screens all over, Red Shadow held onto the neck of a lady with silver-colored hair. She was also in technological suit, but underground she didn't wear her helmet since this space was untainted till Red Shadow broke through it. The underground area trembled intensely as a loud crash was heard from underneath. Red Shadow didn't need to see before he knew that the creature that was being kept here was getting out of the underground area. Red Shadow could feel indescribable and domineering energy from the creature, as well as its gigantic size. "Stop this right now and ask them to come back here," Red Shadow voiced out as his eyes turned menacingly red. "I'm afraid I cannot do that," she responded. "KRRHHHCCHH." Red Shadow tightened his hand around her neck, causing some sounds to ring out as her trachea nearly collapsed from the inside. "It wasn't a request," Red Shadow stated. "Ooh, they want lease 10 until they calm. Let the task required of them," she said while grimacing in pain. Red Shadow had heard this before, so he knew she wasn't completely telling a lie, or telling a lie at all. "Still do it before they all get away," he stated with a sharp tone before letting her go. She landed on her feet and dropped to her knees as she coughed repeatedly. Looking up, she spotted Red Shadow's menacing glare and quickly jumped to her feet. The technological suit, almost covering her entire figure completely, expanded. It covered up her neck and reached her chin area before stopping. "Come back." Her voice traveled far and wide across the vicinity as she spoke with a calm tone. Great Ears Anatus sent his senses out, and to his expected disappointment, there was no response from the infected charging towards Luchin City. Again, he knew it would be of no use, but he was holding on to a last string of hope that the millions of infected would listen and Luchin City would be saved. "Come back here. Desist from overrunning the city," she yelled out once more, but to no avail. Red Shadow's eyes were laced with disappointment and frustration as he sent out a fist. New novels chapters are published en Freewebble CM. Bam! The silver-haired lady got sent flying and slammed into the wall before passing out. Red Shadow proceeded to grab her and sped out of the tunnel. On his way out, he spotted a massive hole that had spread across the ceiling within the tunnelway. Red Shadow leapt out through it and could already spot the millions of infected heading towards Luchin City from the back as they even trampled upon one another. A dark and gigantic figure towering so tall that it reached the sky could be spotted as well. Shit. Red Shadow couldn't help but just curse as he spotted this. It turned out he had been fooled by BJ and the others. They mentioned only one person was left, but it was actually two, a male and a female. Red Shadow was unable to sense the last person amongst the culprits due to her staying underground. The person he was fighting earlier, who he thought to be the last person, and also the person who would give the command, was just the one surveilling the environment just in case. He had managed to delay Red Shadow and gave his partner just enough time to make the commands. Now, there was nothing that could be done to stop these infected with a mixture of mixed breeds, mixed bloods, humans, and Slarkovs. They may have caught the culprits, but right now the situation was like winning the battle while losing the war. Red Shadow proceeded to drop the last lady with her partner and bound her in place as well. Red Shadow was unbothered about transporting them at the moment. He could come get them later, since there was no escaping his shadow restraints, especially when they were all Slarkovs. I need to at least deal with the big one before it gets to the wall, Red Shadow said internally as he created a portal in front of him. Zen's Hinin. As the flower-shaped portal opened, he moved in, and it closed behind him. Thousands of feet ahead, a red portal appeared, far above the sky. Red Shadow figure phased out of it and began to fall across the sky. His body was falling towards the head of a towering tall beast-like creature with ashy skin. Thousand-rending Red Shadow seal. Red Shadow voiced loudly as a massive red silhouette appeared behind him, while he fell. Swai, swai, sweehi, swai. Red shadows began to phase out of the silhouettes in the hundreds. As these shadows phased out, they mixed with the shadow of the massive creature. Bam! Red Shadow landed on the head of the creature with his fist slamming onto its crown. The creature made a low growl that showed it was a little disturbed by the attack, but not so much. The creature's head had similarities with that of a bald lion. Its head had curvy horns protruding from every side, which made it look like the creature was wearing a crown. It had golden and dark eyes, which were up to 8 in number, with a massive muscular body standing on 2 legs like a man, but extremely furry. It had ashy furs all over with a diamond-shaped object embedded into its chest area. The diamond-shaped object embedded into its chest area was the only part of its body with a different color besides its eyes. Chapter 9, 99 Red Shadows defeats it was bigger than 3 human beings placed side by side due to the creature's massiveness. For thick vine-like tails could be seen protruding from its rear as well, and to top it all off, it was more than 4,000 feet tall. The wall surrounding the city was only 3,000 feet tall, yet this creature was over 1,000 feet taller. This already spelled doom for Luchin City. With the amount of energy Red Shadow felt from it, he was sure no one would be able to defeat it amongst the officers unless with joint effort. The problem was with the millions of other infected also approaching the city, dividing forces to take care of this creature, as well as the infected would be ineffective. It would only last for a bit before everyone was either annihilated or the city was forcefully penetrated. Red Shadow decided he would do all he could to keep the creature in place and damage it. At this point, one of the massive thick vine-like tails of the creature was stabbing towards its head area where Red Shadow was situated. The shadows he had sent out earlier has mixed with the shadow of the creature, and were up to 1,000 in number. Freeze! Red Shadow voiced out just when the vine-like tails was close to making contact. Grarum! The shadow of the creature suddenly turned red, and it found itself unable to move an inch. Squirshhaxes! The creature made an incomprehensible sound as it lost control of its body movement. Finding itself trapped in place, it struggled to move, but to no avail. Red Shadow, who stood atop his head, had a struggling expression as he bound his hands before leaping forward. He had only managed to stop the creature from moving for a few seconds, yet he was already sweating so much as it happened to be a cumbersome task. Red Shadow landed on the nose of the creature and began to gather immense energy as his entire body lit up with a red glow. "Hiya!" he yelled out as he drew his left arm back to the limit before, throwing his fist forward at one of the 4 left eyes of the creature. Bang! A loud sound of collision reverberated across the place as Red Shadow's fist pierced through one of the gigantic left eye of the creature. Although the energy surrounding him dimmed a little, his arm was still glowing intensely as he pulled it out of the creature's eye. K-R-R-Y-Y-X-X-X-H-H-H. Ashy goo poured out of its eye intensely as the creature cried out in pain once more. Skrkrks-cheech-heck. This time its voice was at least 100 times louder than before, and the entire environment quaked intensely due to it. The grounds began to split apart as the creature struggled intensely to free itself from Red Shadow's restraint, while one of its left eye bled a fountain. However, Red Shadow was still not done. Despite sweating crazily, he punched forward multiple more times to make sure he ruined more of the eyes of the creature. Bang, bang, bang. Squishy and popping sounds rang out as he managed to get the rest of the 3 left eyes, which at this point were completely ruined. Gradier's Anatus glow had dimmed by a whole lot at this point, and he was sweating buckets. His entire outfit was drenched in salty liquid. Gradier's Anatus was not ready to give in yet. Despite nearly expending his bloodline energy completely, he reached towards the right and was about to get down in destroying the rest of the creature's eyes. "Kitcherer-how?" The creature suddenly yelled out again as its entire body vibrated intensely. Red Shadow's eyes widened as one of the tails of creature suddenly arrived by his side. It was too late for him to dodge, but he managed to create a portal. Bang! The thick vine-like tail with crystallized features slammed into the back of the creature's head where Red Shadow had directed the portal to. However, Red Shadow was unaware that he wasn't in the green yet. Before he knew it, another tail had appeared behind him. Bang! This one slammed directly onto his back, causing him to collide with the thick face of the creature. Red Shadow felt like he was hit with the full moving force of multiple mountains joined together. To make matters worse, he was low on energy, so the protective aura always surrounding him had thinned out a whole lot. Bone-cracking sounds rang out, and Red Shadow found himself slowly losing consciousness as he fell. Before his eyes closed up completely, he felt his figure grabbed by another crystallized tail of the creature. Bang! His figure was flung to the back and slammed into a mountain hundreds of feet away. The gigantic mixed breed infected that had managed to regain control of his body wasn't done with the insect that had just damaged his left eye. It picked Red Shadow up again and slammed him into the ground multiple times with his tail. It still wasn't done with him and flung him into the air before repeated swinging out all of its 4 tails. Bang, 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 bang. Red Shadow's unconscious body was being smacked from place to place in midair by the ruthless infected mixed breed. Bone-cracking sounds just kept ringing out as blood oozed out of Red Shadow's orifices in the process of being smacked around. The creature decided it had had enough dealing with the ant that made it furious and proceeded to raise one of its hand to give the finishing attack. Its muscular arm rose up above Red Shadow's unconscious body that was falling from the air, and it proceeded smacked downwards with his hand like it was dealing with a mosquito. Its massive palm descended with speed and intensity to the extent that before it even collided with the grounds had already split open from the sheer force. Bang! He slammed Red Shadow's unconscious body into the ground with its gigantic palm, causing the Earth to split apart across a radius of close to 100 miles. Chapter 1000, last line of defense after it had finished doing that, the creature proceeded to continue moving. It was unfazed by how it had further destroyed the environment and began walking forward after dealing with the supposed troublesome insect. It was unknown whether Red Shadow was alive or not. A gigantic pit had been formed where the earth had caved in. Bam, bam, bam. The creature continued on its way towards the wall with the other millions of infected surrounding it. They all seemed like ants compared to it, despite the fact that some infected were rather massive since they were mixed breeds as well. The disturbance with Red Shadow had caused some of them to get stomped to meat paste by the massive creature, but with its low-level intelligence, it was unconcerned about friendly fire. The main aim still remained overrunning Lechin City and destroying everything that stood in its way. The present this city is done for, Gustav voiced out as he looked up ahead. Great Ears Anatus made a low hissing sound as he spread out his senses as well. Do you see Red Shadow? Great Ears Anatus questioned. No, Gustav voiced out with a worried tone. Oh, but I do see holes where the left eyes of the creature were located, Gustav added. He must have engaged the creature. Great Ears Anatus stated as he began gathering energy. Let's hope he escaped somewhere after dealing that level of damage on the Jasodnim. Great Ears Anatus added as his eyes turned light blue. The Jasodnim was the name of this creature when it still lived centuries back. It was a guardian of Gildian City back then, and was on the side of the residents, but right now it could only listen to the command it had been given. Based on what Gustav had heard about it, he knew it was almost on the level of Tabitha, who was trapped in the underground dungeons of the MBO camp. This creature would be capable of destroying the entire city itself, yet it was being accompanied by an army of millions. Gustav had a bad feeling welling from within, but they both knew that going to look for Red Shadow at the moment, when they were one of the most powerful forces on the battlefield, would reduce the MBO chances of winning against this horde when their odds were already very low. It'll inform the others of the impending danger and request for more reinforcements, Great Ears Anatus voiced out as he flew downwards towards the wall. Gustav also flew downwards as well, but he headed towards a particular direction of the wall quickly. Bang! He landed in front of a chocolate-skinned officer with white, curly hair. I need your help, Gustav voiced out. Huh? Officer Fola exclaimed with a look of curiosity. Remember Red Shadow, the masked man with Great Ears Anatus, when this whole thing began? Gustav inquired. Yes, I do. Why? Officer Fola asked. I want you to find him. Gustav stated before he began explaining a few things to Fola about what was coming and what he assumed had happened so far. You think he might need help, or maybe trapped behind the millions of infected heading here. Officer Fola exclaimed with a slightly disturbed expression. Yes, he'll be battling the infected, so I won't have the chance to look for him. Gustav answered. I'll do, but how will I get past the tall creature? Officer Fola said with a look of decisiveness and contemplation at the same time. I'll keep it busy. Also, Gustav voiced out as he moved closer to Fola and placed his hand on his left shoulder. Can I trust you? Gustav questioned. Fola had a curious look as he had heard that. Yes, sure. H&M. That's not very convincing, but should you leak what I'm about to do to anyone, he'll send you to the afterlife, Gustav threatened. Ha! Fola eyes widened as he muttered. Bloodline transfer has been activated. Are you ready to defend this wall to the very end? Go out there and send them to hell. Aye. Loud battle cries rang out as the current number of MBO officers on the ground charged forward at the incoming horde infected after Great Ears Anatus briefing. He had told them about the incoming wave that was way more than the numbers that had appeared earlier. He didn't give them the exact amount because he didn't want to weaken their morale. Only himself, Red Shadow, and Gustav knew the full information about what they were currently facing. There were up to 20,000 MBO officers here presently, with more than 10,000 mixed blood mechanical bot from the HMR Warfare Department manned by experienced officers. There were also more than 20,000 AI bots that had been sent as reinforcements. This made the total force of the MBO officers here increase by a whole lot, but this was an army of 60,000 plus going against one of over 6 million, all enhanced with a very powerful mixed breed, also on their side. The odds were not in their favor at all. Gradier Xanatus had once more requested for the city to be evacuated before engaging in the battle, but the higher-ups were still debating on it. They were the last defense the city had, and Gradier Xanatus decided they would try their best to prevent the infected from getting through, even though it was looking like an impossible task. Swoosh Gustav was way faster than Gradier Xanatus, so he had already gone past a lot of the infected from above. Massive bat-like wings had sprouted out of his back as he flew forward with speed and arrived in front of the massive creature. Ashigu was still pouring out of the left side of the Gisodinum's face. Now that Gustav was closer, he could sense the energy of the creature better, and knew that defeating this creature was not something he could do alone. It swung its hand at Gustav the moment he spotted the insect like being flying in front of it. Gustav was still able to move to the side in midair as he landed on the creature's arm and began running across it. Sprint has been activated. Chapter 1001 Battle with Gisodinum Reed. Author's note below. Gustav was still able to move to the side in midair as he landed on the creature's arm and began sprinting across it. Sprint has been activated. The creature was aware of the presence on his arm and proceeded to wave its second gigantic hand, trying to swat Gustav like a fly. Gustav leapt upwards at this time as a gigantic, milky-colored sword appeared in his grasp. He stabbed the sword forward as his body flew towards the forehead area of the creature. At this same instant, one of the creature's crystallized vine, like tail, swung towards Gustav from the right. It looked like it was too fast and was already centimeters away from making contact with Gustav when he spotted it. Sweehi! Before it could make contact, Gradier Xanatus appeared beside Gustav's with his palm straightened and swung out. Bam! Gradier Xanatus' palm, that was covered with a bluish glow, slammed into the vine, causing a metallic clang to ring out. You may be faster, but I have better reaction speed, Gradier Xanatus voiced out after repelling the tail. I had it, Gustav stated as the gigantic 20 feet atomic sword stabbed into the forehead of the Gisodinum. The creature made a low grunt as the atomic blade only managed to pierce its forehead for about half a feet. For a creature as large as this, that was barely a flesh wound. Gustav was astonished at the resistance of this creature's body. It was so tough that atomic disintegration found it hard to get rid of its skin even when he used enough force with the blade. Fwyi! The creature's hand came crashing forward with the intention of slapping Gustav off its face again. Gustav swung forward and placed both feet on the Gisodinum's face before pushing backwards with force. A small flesh-ripping sound rang out as his body flew backwards while he pulled the atomic sword out of its forehead. Ashigu oozed out of the small wound for a bit, while Gustav managed to dodge swing of the creature's hand. He paused after dodging and swung out his arm once more with intensity. The blade cleaved through the creature's wrist area, but only cut in lightly. The creature made another loud noise as it swung its arm around while Gustav's atomic blade was still stuck in its sturdy skin. Gustav let go of the atomic sword to avoid being swung away while the atomic sword disintegrated into light particles. However, he had underestimated the strength of the creature. Whoosh! Even after letting go, the wind generated from the swing of Gisodinum's palm was so fierce, Gustav found himself getting tossed across the place by a force that was 20 times worse than a tornado. Gradier Xanatus was currently behind the creature, and at the moment his hand was swinging towards its neck area. Bang, bang, bang. His palm, which was still gleaming with blue light, slammed multiple times into the neck of the creature, causing loud sounds of collision to ring out. Jasadanim was about to take opportunity of the winds tossing Gustav around and send a critical attack towards him when Gradier's Anatus attacks hit. While it only felt like a pebble kept hitting him at his neck area, it was nevertheless disturbing. Jasadanim made a loud growl as it reached out to grab Gradier's Anatus, who managed to escape its swing by a hair length. Gustav managed to stabilize himself at this point, but Gradier's Anatus was in danger. Multiple of Jasadanem's tail was headed towards him from all sides, and Gradier's Anatus wasn't quick enough. Bam! Bam! He managed to react in time and slam his palm into 3 of them, repelling them. However, the 4th one was only inches from slamming into him from above when Gustav arrived before him. Swai, the atomic blade in his hand slammed heavily into the tail, cutting halfway through before sending flying in the opposite direction. Yes, I'm still faster, and so is my reaction speed, Gustav voiced out, causing Gradier's Anatus to chuckle. We might not be able to beat it, but stalling it is possible, Gradier's Anatus voiced out as the thrusters beneath his feet blasted out, intensely causing him to fly towards the left with speed. The massive arm of the creature had appeared in between both of them in the next instant. Stall it for what? If we cannot beat it, we might as well have lost the battle, Gustav voiced out as he flew forward. Stall it for long enough till the world government makes a decision about the fate of this city, Gradier's Anatus answered as he brought his fist down upon the hand of the creature. Bang! The creature's arm swayed downwards from the hit, and Gustav proceeded to stab another gigantic atomic sword into Jasadanem's shoulder. He positioned it so well, it stabbed more than 3 feet deep into the joint area. Gustav still didn't let go of the blade, even after he sensed the second hand of the creature swatting towards him. Hi-ah! He screamed out as he increased the size of the atomic sword while it was still embedded in the shoulder area of the creature. Zethiites, the atomic sword grew from 20 feet long and 3 feet wide to 60 feet long and 7 feet wide. At this point, it had stabbed more than 10 feet deep into the creature's body, which made it easier, since it was already embedded into its body. However, at this same moment, the other hand arrived behind Gustav. Bang! Gradier's Anatus arrived in time and managed to stop it from going further, as Gustav kept increasing the length of the atomic blade. Gustav's hand trembled intensely as he expended lots of energy, while still pushing further. Gradier's Anatus, that had managed to stop the hand of the creature in the meantime, was also trembling, even while mustering all the energy he could. "Are you there?" Gradier's Anatus asked, while a groan escaped from his lips. "Almost," Gustav answered as sweat dribbled down his forehead. Chapter 1002 Jasadanem uses a familiar ability Swai, Shwihai, Shiai, Swai. The 4 tails of the creature came swinging at them in the next instant, and with both of them being preoccupied with what they were doing, there was no way to stop this. Suddenly, a muscular lady in orange patterned MBO uniform appeared from above. "Kaya!" she screamed out as she unleashed 2 fists covered my massive metallic gauntlets while falling from the air. Bang! She slammed into the first tail and propelled herself up with a metallic board that just appeared in midair. Bang! Bang! Bam! She moved extremely quickly, leaping from place to place as she punched the tails of the Jasadanem away. It sounded like metal was colliding with another metal as her smooth black metallic gauntlets slammed into Jasadanem tails. After the crisis had been averted, Gustav's body transformed into that of a mixture between the demonic bunny and the mutated boar. This wasn't with the power of combination, as Gustav could combine 2 of his transformations without having to use them. His arms budged intensely as his muscles expanded. He forcefully pushed the atomic sword deeper into the creature, as he also expanded it. "Kai-ahs!" he yelled out as he pushed forward while Gradier's Anatus restrained the second arm, and the officer that had just arrived dealt with the tails. Gustav was increasing the atomic sword size to the extent that it had already stabbed more than halfway through the joint area of Jesodinum, and it would completely cut through in a little more time. Jesodinum growled with a loud voice as he got tired of these disturbances, while also feeling that this bunch were about to deal great damage like the insect earlier. The massive diamond-shaped golden-colored item embedded in its chest area suddenly glowed up. It's about to use it. Disengage. Great Ears and Natus yelled out. I'm almost there. Gustav shouted out in response as he kept pushing. Disengage right now. Great Ears and Natus yelled out, but still didn't let go of the creature's arm because he knew Gustav would be affected. Gustav could sense a familiar energy as the massive diamond-shaped item embedded in the chest of the creature glowed up, but he couldn't put his thumb on the exact source of this familiarity. Suddenly, a spectrum of energy traveled from the edges to the middle of the massive diamond energy, and in the next instant, thwoosh, dry-in-in-zen-zen, a golden wave traveled forth from the creature, spreading across the surroundings. Ugh, ugh, ugh. This wave traveled across the entire vicinity, surrounding even the army of infected and the MBO officers all battling on the wall, as well as the ground. I can't move, the lady who was about to throw a fist earlier voiced as she stood on a metallic board. Great Ears and Natus also paused in place. I told you to disengage. You mentioned this power. How come it affects even everyone on the battlefield? Gustav voiced out as he also froze in place, unable to keep pushing the atomic sword forward. His hand hung on the hilt of the atomic blade, as his body just froze in place while every other person on the battlefield, ranging from the infected to even the MBO officers, paused in place as well. Why do you think the creature is way dangerous than it's supposed to be? This is just one of its overwhelming power, Great Ears and Natus voiced in response. He had wanted them to get far enough, so they wouldn't be affected by this power when it was activated. This is cosmic superiority. Gustav's eyes widened as he realized why he felt this energy was familiar. Yes, it is. The system answered from within. How? Gustav said internally with a surprised look. Who said only mixed bloods or other supernatural aliens were capable of achieving cosmic superiority? Even beasts can achieve it if they're blessed and chosen by the cosmos. The system replied. Ugh. Great Ears and Natus made a loud groaning sound as Jesodinum grabbed hold of him. Bone-cracking sounds began to ring out as he squeezed Great Ears and Natus in his massive hand. It proceeded to grab hold of the other officer with its other hand as well, while Gustav was still hanging from the massive atomic sword still embedded in its shoulder. It seemed to have decided to ignore Gustav in the meantime, while wanting to deal with these two first, and leave Gustav for last. Within the city, they were wondering why the everywhere had gone silent. They had no idea it was due to this massive mixed breed putting everyone, including the millions of infected, into a frozen state. Gustav had a conflicted expression as he watched the creature slowly crushing both of them in its hand. He was unable to move, channel his bloodline, or even use any ability in this state, just like the others. There was only one thought crossing his mind right now, and that was the only option he had. He had initially decided he was never going to make use of his cosmic superiority, since this was not only a battlefield filled with thousands of officers, but they would also be affected by it if he was to use it. However, there seemed to be no other option at the moment, as Great Ears and Natus would meet his end if Gustav decided not to act at this moment. He now understood why Jesodinum was feared, and Great Ears and Natus saw it as an impossible mission to win. Let's see whose cosmic superiority is more powerful, Gustav muttered as he closed his eyes. Suddenly, seeing a mixture of pinkish and reddish energy blasted forth from his frame the instant he opened his eyes. A cross-shaped glow could be seen in his pupils as the powerful energy blasted forth from his frame, causing Jesodinum to step back in disbelief. Not only was Gustav's Yarki abnormal, it had effects that Jesodinum's Yarki didn't have. Jasadanim could feel a weird urge building up from within which caused its knees to nearly buckle. It felt the urge to kneel like it was in the presence of a superior being, however it fought back with its own Yarki. Chapter 1003 Gustav versus Gisadinims. It felt the urge to kneel like it was in the presence of a superior being, however it fought back with its own Yarki. The wave of golden energy blasted forth from its chest area again, trying to battle with that of Gustav's. However, the instant Gustav activated his Yarki, he regained the ability to move. He let go of the atomic sword and slowly elevated as he stared down at the creature. How was he able to move? Gradiers and Natus wondered internally with a look of shock. This was the same as the other female officer, as well as the many officers on the battlefield that could spot him. Someone is moving? How is he unaffected? What was that energy he just released? What did he just do? Such thoughts ran through the minds of many officers as their eyes were locked in Gustav's direction. Gustav's Yarki was not taking full effect due to Gisadinim's Yarki clashing with it. Both Yarkis were currently fighting for supremacy. However, one effect that was prevalent was everyone still standing with the inability to move. The domineering wave of Gustav's Yarki made everyone's feet buckle as they found they falling to the ground on their knees. The infected and the officers were all affected by this, but the burning effect was currently not taking place. "Let them go," Gustav voiced in a low but very strong tone. The Jasadanim found itself slowly releasing its grip around Gradiers and Natus and the other lady subconsciously. It made a loud growling sound as the diamond item in its chest area glowed intensely and suddenly shot out a golden beam of destruction. Gustav raised both his arms and crossed them to block the beam that had suddenly blasted forward. Iroh silk grew out of his body and made a covering around him just in time. Bang! He had not expected this and was shot thousands of feet backwards upon collision, as the Iroh silk surrounding him shattered to pieces instantly. Gustav slammed into the east side of wall, creating a massive hole within. The power of his Yarki weakened after this hit, and the Jasadanim regained complete control of itself. "It is able to attack with its Yarki?" Gustav said internally as he slowly picked himself out of the hole. It was as if he had not just taken massive damage. His entire body was drenched in blood, and his bones were making loud cracking noises as he slowly pulled himself out. Jasadanim is at the parallel stage of cosmic superiority. The system revealed that is why it has more cosmic superiority-related abilities. Gustav felt it made sense now. However, what didn't make sense was how Gustav's Yarki was still causing Jasadanim to nearly submit even when Jasadanim was supposed to be at a higher level. Gustav injuries had began to heal despite how grievous they were, but the Jasadanim was not interested in giving him time to heal up completely. So, it had shot out another golden beam. Gustav wanted to move out of the way, but he knew that if he did that, the wall would be destroyed along with everyone standing on it in this particular area. "Pah!" Slapping his hand on the wall. Iroh's silk suddenly spread out from the point of impact to every other part of the wall. As if Gustav wasn't satisfied with this, his body temperature suddenly dropped instantly and thick frost spread across the wall, acting as another protective barrier. Zing! The Jiko Hakai katana appeared in his grasp in the next instant. He tightened his hands around it and swung in a vertical format. Swewin, a large reddish arc cut across the air, carrying destructive power with it as it headed in the direction of the incoming golden beam. Despite its size being similar to a mountain, the golden beam was at least 10 times more larger than it was. Boom! Both destructive attacks met each other midway, which caused a phenomenon where tiny rifts were formed in midair for a bit. The reddish arc contended well with the golden beam, and even managed to get rid of it to a certain extent, but the beam was too powerful. Despite reducing in power, it kept shooting forward with intense speed. Swoosh! At this point, Gustav flew upwards. Bang! The golden beam slammed into the protective layers Gustav had created before the wall and tore through them. It was finally stopped by the main wall after it had lost more than 80% of its power. However, it still managed to blast a hole in the wall. Gustav flew forward, causing Jasodnim to target him. This way the next attack would not be directed at the wall. The diamond-shaped item embedded in its chest glowed up once more as it fired more beams at Gustav. Swoosh, 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 whoosh. Fortunately, Gustav wasn't taken by surprise this time, so he was able to dodge every single attack despite its immense size. As he flew in the direction of the Jasodnim, once more, he let out more energy from his Yarki. Swayayaya. The waves spread from him, once more causing Jasodnim to quickly let out its energy from Yarki as well. Bomb. Both energies clashed once more and began pushing against one another. Everyone in the vicinity felt immensely uncomfortable as the two domineering and irregular energies clashed. The Jasodnim pushed forward as it flung Gradier Zanatus and the other female officer away. It had realized at this point that Gustav was the true threat, so it was willing to do whatever it took to get rid of Gustav. It swung its massive hand forward in a bid to swat Gustav downwards. The Jiko Hakai katana in Gustav's grasp swung out at the same time. Slash! A massive cut was left on the arm of the creature as Gustav flew to the side to dodge the attack. He was still way faster than the creature, and so long as it was using physical attacks, Gustav was sure he would be able to dodge unless he ran out of energy or was preoccupied with something else. Chapter 1004 Fight Lost? Swoosh, swoosh, slash, slash. Gustav kept dashing across the place as he repeated left injuries on the body of the creature. Jasodnim was slowly starting to weaken from Gustav's constant pushing with the Yarki. It couldn't understand how Gustav's Yarki was so domineering that his own couldn't match up despite how it was supposed to be stronger. Its tails flew from all directions as it kept throwing attacks at Gustav. Gustav proceeded to grab hold of one of its tails after dodging three of the. Just the tip of one of its tails was thrice Gustav's size, yet he managed to make contact. He would have dodged, but he wanted to test out a theory. Kiochikachu, SS, Jasodnim, yelled out as its tail began disintegrating into ashes. This was something atomic disintegration was able to achieve, yet Gustav's Yarki was having such an effect. Looks like it still works, so long as I make contact, Gustav noticed as he held his palm forward. One of Jasodinim's tail had completely burned off at this point. It grew warier of Gustav after Gustav performed that action. The diamond item in its chest glowed up once more as crystallizing purplish shards began growing out of its skin. It began covering the creature from head to toe, which would serve as an armor. Gustav wasn't going to wait around for it to complete this process. He charged forward in midair as a massive atomic sword appeared in his grasp. I need more speed and power before it covers its entire body, as well as its injury. Gustav thought in less than a second as an idea appeared in his mind. Activating it might take a lot of energy, but if it's only for an instant, I won't run out of energy, Gustav said internally. Ultimate combination has been activated. His body transformed speedily as he stretched the massive atomic sword forward in the direction of Jasodinim's left shoulder. Suzanne, his figure cut a silver and crimson streak across the air as he instantly arrived before Jasodnim. Thria! A loud, ripping sound rang out as he directly stabbed through the large tear already around the creature's shoulder. Gustav's whole figure tore through, and what was heard in the next instant was a large thump. Bam! Jasodinim's left hand, which was more massive than that of a skyscraper, fell to the ground, causing a land quake from its high mass. It roared loudly in pain as its arm fell off its shoulder. Ashy-colored goo flowed out like a fountain as the creature stepped back subconsciously. The arm that had initially been crystallizing with the purplish shards began to return to normal as its source of power was disconnected. Gustav had finally managed to strike the blow he initially wanted to. With the injury he had inflicted entirely, he was able to successfully sever its arm from its shoulder. Gustav deactivated Ultimate Combination in the next instant, so as to save energy as the massive atomic sword disintegrated as well. Jesodnim swung out once more with its right hand as it noticed Gustav flying towards it. Maneuvering downwards, Gustav dodged and made contact with its arm from underneath. However, now that the rest of its body had been crystallized, it was unaffected by Gustav's touch that would have caused its arm to be turned to ash due to the effect of Yarki. There was only one part of its body that was not covered by this crystalline purplish shards that acted as armor. Its head, Gustav muttered as he swerved from side to side, dodging the more of the creature's attacks. Gustav flew upwards at this point, surpassing Jesodinum's height in the sky. Fwii! He kept ascending with intense speed till he had climbed a height of over 100,000 feet. The Jesodinum wondered what Gustav was up to, but with its inability to fly, it couldn't go after Gustav. However, the creature was well capable of leaping high, and it already had the intention of doing so. It still wasn't fast enough, as Gustav paused after reaching a particular height in the sky. He turned upside down to face the earth as he activated a skill. Lightning Blitz has been activated. 3 electric arcs were generated as Gustav's figure suddenly blurred. Soon, his figure disappeared instantly as a lightning arc cut through the sky and appeared 100 miles below instantly. Jesodnim, who was about to leap upwards to go after Gustav, suddenly saw him appear right above him with a weapon in hand. Gustav stabbed downwards with the Jiko Hakai katana the moment he arrived above Jesodinum's head. Thririn! At the same moment, a protective energy phased out of the diamond-like item embedded in Jesodinum's chest. A transparent golden-colored barrier suddenly appeared around Jesodinum's head at the same instant Gustav's blade was about to make contact with its head. Clang! A loud sound of collision rang out as the Jiko Hakai katana slammed into the barrier. A stream of energy that was sent forth from the katana suddenly redirected back upwards. Boom! The force from the energy of the collision slammed heavily into Gustav, sending him flying backwards as he spiraled in midair repeatedly. Bone-cracking sounds rang out as Gustav vomited out a mouthful of blood, while still getting blasted backwards from the destructive energy. Jesodnim made another weird sound as cracks appeared all over the protective barrier that surrounded its head at the last second. It ignored that and charged after Gustav's body. Gyra! It yelled out as it raised its hand and grabbed Gustav's body before slamming him into the ground. Boom! Massive shockwaves spread out as infected, and officers alike were affected by the impact of Gustav slamming into the ground. It jumped upwards and landed on the exact spot it slammed Gustav into. Boom. This once again created rupturing waves as the creature's attacks caused the earth to split apart. A massive crater had been formed where Gustav's figure was slammed into. Chapter 1005. I can't lose consciousness right now. The creature didn't seem satisfied and wreaked even more havoc with its last arm. Bang, 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 bang. Sounds of collision rang out repeatedly as a punch and stomped upon the same area. The crater created had spread across more than 20 miles at this point, and multiple infected along with MBO officers and even AI bots had fallen into it. Gustav's status was unknown after more than 5 minutes of repeated pounding, but the creature seemed to have been satisfied after doing this continuously, so it finally stopped. The whole place once more descended into silence as the creature stood in place with its golden aura getting stronger with every passing second. It looked forward in the direction of the wall that had cracks all over right now with multiple parts having holes. It began stepping forward without releasing its Yarki. Its intention was to get rid of the wall now that no one was standing in its way, including the infected. Stomp, 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 stomp. With every movement, it crossed more than 100 feet and was getting closer to the wall. It wasn't in a hurry as it moved, but it was still very fast and would get to the wall in less than 10 seconds. Despite only having a single arm currently, Jasadanim would still be capable of ruining the city without anyone to stop it. Great Ears Anatus had repeatedly called for backup, since he could still speak even though he was unable to move his body. However, the aircraft that were closing in on the city found themselves unable to move further after reaching the affected areas of both Yarkis. They couldn't attack nor move, so it was useless. The Jasadanim arrived a few feet away from the wall in no time and paused for a bit. Just as it raised its hand, it felt a presence from behind. "Hey!" It quickly turned around as this familiar voice drifted into its ears, but the moment it did, Puchiai, a 4-foot sword with reddish blades stabbed through what was left of the protective barrier surrounding its head and cut into its forehead. It was merely a needle due to the Jasadanem's large size, but in the next instant it burst forth with immense destructive energy. "Hayo!" Gustav yelled out as he poured energy into the Jiko Hakai katana and pushed forward as much as he could. Threh! A blast of crimson light shone forth as the Jiko Hakai katana ripped through Jasadanem's forehead. Its forehead made a loud sound as Gustav tore further into it and infiltrated the creature's skull. The energy blasted forth into its head wreaked havoc within, and in the next few seconds, Sithii, Jasadanem's golden eyes slowly turned dim as it fell over. Boom! A loud sound rang out as Jasadanem fell to the back, causing another massive shockwave to spread across the environment. Gustav, who was within its forehead, was holding his breath as his entire body was covered in brain matter and blood. He pulled out the Jiko Hakai katana from a wall section within Jasadanem's brain after he confirmed the creature was dead. He stood in place for several seconds despite knowing that he had won the battle because of an unexpected reason. The source of this content is Frieden Vel CM. Does host wish to absorb this parallel being cosmic superiority? What is this? I can absorb cosmic superiority? Gustav was pleasantly surprised as he saw this notification. Well, you've never fought a cosmic superior being, so it's understandable that you had no idea you could. The system responded. It didn't make it easy as well. Gustav had to admit that this was the craziest battle he had gotten into. Retract your Yarki, the system stated. Gustav's eyes widened as he realized that his Yarki was still activated. Now that Jasadanem was dead, the full effects of his Yarki would have returned, and everyone on the battlefield would be suffering burns. Zuzhun, he quickly retracted it, causing the entire battlefield to return to normal as everyone found themselves in control of their body functions once more. I'm almost out of energy, Gustav muttered with a look of urgency. Are you going to absorb the cosmic superiority, or what? The system questioned. Of course, Gustav answered. So long as it helps me to regain a bit of my energy because this battle is far from being over, Gustav stated. Host has decided to absorb this parallel being cosmic superiority, about it helping you to regain your energy. The system voiced with a weird tone. Absorbing cosmic superiority. Huh? What is it? Gustav had a feeling of foreboding as he heard this. His entire figure brightened up with a golden glow within Jasadanem's head as he began absorbing its cosmic superiority. Gustav began to feel weird as he absorbed Jasadanem's cosmic superiority. Hey system, what is it you wanted to mention? Gustav asked once more with a tone of urgency as he could feel that something wasn't right. You'll be losing consciousness in a few. The system revealed. What? No, I can't, Gustav voiced out with a worried tone as he spread his perception across the vicinity. He could tell that the battle between the infect and the officers had continued after he retracted his Yarki. New novel chapters are published on Frieden Vel CM, I can't lose consciousness right now, Gustav said with a high tone. There is nothing you can do about it. Do you know what it means to absorb a parallel being cosmic superiority? You're already defying all the laws of the cosmos, and this is the greatest defiance of all, stopping the cosmic superiority from returning to the cosmos, so another being might be granted with the blessing. The system explained. At this point, Gustav was already starting to get drowsy. No matter how much he tried to fight the sleepiness, his eyelids kept shutting subconsciously. Stop. Absorbing. I can do that later. Gustav listed as he staggered while trying to keep himself standing. I am afraid the process cannot be stopped after it has began, the system disclosed. See you in 3 days. Gustav. The system added. Gustav cursed under his breath before his eyelids closed completely, and he fell unconscious. Check out Flames of Desire by Bayvita and add to your library. Chapter 1006, The Weird Internal State of Gisodinum Skulls, Gustav cursed under his breath before his eyelids closed completely, and he fell unconscious. His body retained its glow after he had fallen face down within the head of the Gisodinum. Yaya, Kairar, Hayo. Outside the Gisodinum's head, battle cries rang out as the MBO resumed their fight against the infected. Every single person had scorch marks on different parts of their bodies due to Gustav's Yarki before he retracted it. Some infected had even been scorched nearly to ashes, since some of them didn't have bodies that were as sturdy as that of the MBO. Gradier Xanatus flew across the battlefield, occasionally hurling down attacks as he charged forward. Gustav, he yelled out as he flew across the air while looking down. All he could see from up here was the devastation caused by the battle between Gustav and the Gisodinum. Earth had split to the point where one would wonder if this was a battle between two beta-ranked. There were craters all over the place that extended to even the borders of Gildian City behind. Both infected and MBO officers had lost their lives due to the fight between these two, and even the wall that were erected around the city had nearly been torn down completely. Everyone witnessed these two put everyone in a state where they were unable to move throughout the duration of their battle. Gustav, who was supposed to be an Echo-ranked battle with a mixed breed, was so powerful in the past and had its power even boosted by the infection, yet he still came out on top. An infected mixed breed that was beyond level 100, yet an Echo-ranked mixed blood won against it, whereas Kilo and Delta-ranked mixed bloods were unable to intervene. Gradier Xanatus had so many unanswered questions running through his mind, and one of them involved how Gustav was able to use the same type of power Gisodinum was mostly feared for, and even used it in a more powerful state. However, even if he had these questions, he knew he would never be able to get any answers if Gustav remains missing. The infected were not going to wait or give them chance to do a proper search, so Gradier Xanatus took it upon himself to find Gustav. The battle was won, but Gradier Xanatus feared it was not without a cost, especially after Gustav's presence disappeared the moment Gisodinum met his end. The female officer that had initially joined them had gone back to battling the infected. Just because Gisodinum had been unexpectedly taken care of didn't mean the fight was over. Gisodinum was just one part of the threat. The other part was not any less dangerous, since there were more than 6 million infected pushing their way forward in a bid to overrun the city. Gustav, Gradier Xanatus yelled out once more as he headed towards the corpse of the Gisodinum. He suddenly recalled something as he closed in on the gigantic corpse in the distance. The source of this content is F.O. The infected come back to life if their bodies are not properly gotten rid of, he said internally before flying and landing on the head of the corpse. We need to completely disintegrate its body. Gradier Xanatus yelled out to those on the wall. The officers on the walls with abilities that were capable of completely getting rid of Gisodinum's body began to jump down from the wall. As Gradier moved around its head area, He noticed that there was a glow coming from the hole that was created in Gisodinum's forehead. Everyone knew the cause of this hole was Gustav's killing blow, but no one knew he never came out of it. Gustav? Gradier Xanatus spotted the unconscious figure laying within the massive hole on the forehead of the creature. Ashy goo was still pouring out of the forehead like a fountain, and some flowed over Gustav as his glowing unconscious body just laid there. Gradier Xanatus quickly moved in and tried to retrieve Gustav's glowing unconscious body. He lifted Gustav over his shoulder and headed out the hole, but then he noticed he was unable to get past the entry point. What is happening? He wondered out loud as he felt himself getting stopped by an invisible force. Gradier Xanatus put Gustav down and swung his palm forward. He had expected to get stopped by the invisible force, but this time his hand moved past the entry point freely. A look of confoundment appeared on Gradier Xanatus' face as he picked Gustav up once more and tried to make his way out. He was stopped by the invisible force once more. Gradier Xanatus placed Gustav's glowing body down once more, and the same result as earlier repeated itself. Unfortunately, no matter how much Gradier Xanatus tried to get Gustav's body out of the creature's head, it was to no avail. New novel chapters are published on FreeWeb. Welcome. He had even tried creating another exit point, but it brought about the same results. At this point, Gradier Xanatus was sure that something was going on, and he attributed it to the glow on Gustav's body. He noticed that as time passed, Gustav's unconscious body was crystallizing with golden shards. Whatever is happening to him right now, I'm sure it's not negative. Gradier Xanatus could tell as he scrutinized Gustav's frame. He decided to move out at this point. Do not touch the creature till the glow there has dimmed. After it does, retrieve Officer Crimson's body and keep him somewhere safe, Gradier Xanatus voiced out before turning around to head back into the battlefield. The 9 officers that had just dropped from the wall to take care of this task had looks of confusion on their faces as Gradier Xanatus moved further away from here. However, a command was a command, and they had no right to question it at such a crucial moment when they knew Gradier Xanatus had to busy himself with preventing the infected from breaching the wall. MBO camp in a grassy-filled field void of people. I must say you did a splendid job. Chapter 1007, The Gang's Determination. A greenish-looking crystal floated in front of a young teenage boy with black curly hair as it glowed repeatedly while a masculine voice was projected from it. I almost died, Endrick voiced out in response. True, but you did a splendid job regardless, Fusarius stated once more. Acquiring the vest makes 20% of your mission complete. It's a huge leap, Fusarius added. I sense so much power in the vest. Are you sure the dimension you locked it away in will be able to prevent its energy from seeping out? Endrick inquired with a slightly worried look. It will keep it sealed in the meantime. The only thing you should be worried about is getting rid of its residue energy lingering around you. That could potentially cause you to be in great danger, Fusarius warned. Why so? Endrick questioned. The lingering residue energy could attract entities from all over the world that have all longed to acquire the vest of Dumbledore. A lot of them wield power beyond your comprehension, but locating the vest always eluded them. If I wasn't helping, you would have gotten lost in universe trying to find the vest, Fusarius explained. On the bright side, they won't try infiltrating Earth even if they sense as Earth is a formidable force to behold. But the moment you leave this planet with the lingering energy still surrounding you, you place a target on your back, and trust me, these mad creatures will not hesitate to chase you to the ends of the universe just to make sure they acquired the vest, he added. Endrick nodded with a look of understanding as he heard this. How do I get rid of the energy? Endrick proceeded to ask. In another part of the MBO camp, a group of 9 could be seen standing together in a garden-like area as they discussed. The ISOP training is starting in 2 months, and we're getting out of camp in a month's time. Angie voiced with a contemplative look. Did every single one of us manage to reduce our term here in camp? Alevera questioned. Yes, E answered as he threw a glance at every one of them before smiling. You'll be showing them who's boss, he added. So every one of us will get to complete a mission at the very least before ISOP begins, Eldris pointed out. That's great. Gustav has already gotten way ahead of us in MBO ranks. We have to close in the gap as soon as possible, Falco stated. My rival is just too powerful. I will give my all to surpass him or close in the gap, Rhea said with a look of determination. Come on, guys, let's show the world that this generation of mixed blood will be taking over in every aspect, Timmy added. I can't wait, whatever it takes to be at Gustav's side, Vera said with a dreamy look causing Angie to shoot her an intense glare. Vera didn't care about that and feigned nonchalance even after noticing that. We won't be able to achieve any of that if we don't increase our rank and get even more powerful, Matilda voiced out. Gustav is always working hard, and it works for him. So we have to work twice, no thrice, no 4 times as hard if we ever have any hope of coming close to his level of strength. Glade spoke this time. Hey, she might be a puppet, but she's right, Evie stated. The source of this content is F-O-E-E. They all voiced out at the same time as they stared at him. What? Did I say something wrong? E asked with an innocent expression. Don't say that out loud, Falco whispered. Anyways, I'm suggesting a joint training. No breaks for the next month. Eldris broke the brief silence, caused after Glade stared at everyone with a confused expression. We're going to be pushing ourselves beyond our limits, Eldris added. Everyone had a look of determination as they heard that and began agreeing to the joint training, Alevera included, even though she had already achieved the Echo rank. Flicker, flicker, flicker. Within what looked like a hospital ward, the lights suddenly began flickering as a bed with a patient on it started to float. Get a doctor down here, one of the nurses yelled through a communication device as she cited this scene. The person on the bed had their eyes closed, but their hand and toes fingers would occasionally make small movements. 3rd time in the last 3 days. He needs another shot, the nurse yelled out through the communication device once more. How is it that even after moving him into the special suppressive room, he is still able to do this? I have no idea, just get down here, the nurse voiced out in response. GBBHHHLLHHBBBLL. New novel chapters are published on FreeWeb. Oh, Velcom, the entire vicinity began trembling as the bed in this ward floated further upwards and flickering lights flickered with even more intensity. Be quick, if you don't want him destroying the entire building in his sleep, the nurse yelled out once more as the force from this incident began pushing her backwards, causing her uniform to bloat due to wind. In a few moments, a doctor came dashing in with a massive instrument in his hands that was almost too heavy for him to carry. 2 other male nurses came in with him and tried assisting as he moved this instrument in the direction of the floating bed. A part of the floor popped out and began lifting them to the height this unconscious patient had attained. Open his mouth, the doctor yelled to one of the nurses as they moved the instrument closer. The instrument, which looked like a 4 feet large funnel, was about to open up beneath and empty its contents in the mouth of this patient. At the last second, the patient suddenly opened his eyes. Grab, the doctor and nurses displayed a startled expression as he grabbed hold of the instrument and stopped it from moving forward. What are you doing? He asked as he slowly sat up. Chapter 1008 Charlie Cities. What are you doing? He asked as he slowly sat up. He's awake, the doctor voiced out with a tone of astonishment. The nurses had similar expressions on their faces after the patient opened his eyes and spoke. The energy circulating around the place also suddenly stopped. Bang! The bed landed back on the floor with a loud crash. As everywhere returned to tranquility, the patient slowly ripped the wires attached to his body to monitor his vitals. Officer Crimson, How do you feel? The doctor asked as the extended floor descended. Me? Am good, Gyuzov responded as he looked around. Are you sure? No weird feeling? Ache, pain, or whatever? One of the nurses voiced out. I am okay. Never felt better, Gustav reassured while clenching and unclenching his hands as a test. He could see the worried looks on their faces slowly reduce, as he also spotted the instrument in the doctor's grasp. Looks like it's been 3 days already, Gustav said internally. Have I been here all this time? Gustav inquired out loud, as he wondered why they would place him in a medical institution. Yes, sir. You passed out on the battlefield in Luchin City, and you were brought in by the MBO. The doctor revealed. The battle. Gustav recalled the battle with the infected and was overcome with great worry as he wondered how it ended. Ooh, we have tried our best to keep you under control in the last 3 days, but even as medical practitioners, we had no idea if you would regain consciousness or not, the doctor continued speaking. Under control? Gustav voiced with a confused expression as he heard this. Yes, under control. Why? You see, you've been emitting unstable energy at certain periods for the last 3 days, and during those times you destroyed several structures whilst being unconscious. We had to place you here to repress the energy and even keep you under a medicinal dosage any time it's spiraled out of control again. It has been most stressful, but we're glad you've regained consciousness, the doctor explained, causing Gustav's face to show a look of understanding. My body must have been adapting to the cosmic superiority. Being unconscious all this time, my body must have been merging the power completely with me to make it entirely my own, Gustav analyzed internally as he stood to his feet. Hold on, Officer Crimson, you just woke up. Where are you going? The doctor asked. Where else? I'm leaving, of course, Gustav responded. I'm afraid we can't allow that, the doctor voiced out as he moved to stand in front of Gustav. You're still unstable, and innocent people might be put in danger if any of your energy tantrums begin again, he added with a pleading look. I am perfectly fine. Now that I've regained consciousness, nothing of the sort is going to happen, Gustav said with a reassuring tone while walking past the side of the doctor. The source of this content is F.O. They asked me to inform them the moment you regain consciousness. Can you at least hold on till they arrive here? The doctor asked. Don't worry, I'm going to them, Gustav said before dashing out. Phew-whoosh. Wind blew across the place as his figure disappeared. The doctor knew well that no one could stop Gustav if he decided to leave, which was why the respectful approach was necessary. Not even the suppressive room could hold his power, so they knew very well that holding him here against his will was impossible. Inform the MBO of his recovery, the doctor voiced as he stormed out of the room. Whoosh, as Gustav dashed through this unknown city, he thought, I didn't even ask the doctor where this is. Thum! He leapt into the air in the next instant and arrived above a tall skyscraper. He stared down at the city from this height, and in the next few seconds, a figure flew in from the west and landed atop this same skyscraper. He was clad in an MBO outfit and had a weird expression on his face. I'm going to have to ask you to return to the medical center now, the man with the ice cube-like face voiced out. Why? Gustav said while raising an eyebrow. He still had a patient uniform on, so his clothes kept flapping due to the wind. Higher up orders. I'll have to consider you in hostile if you refuse to adhere, the officer voiced out as he suddenly unleashed his bloodline energy. A kilo ranked. Gustav noticed instantly. I refuse. Now be good, and tell me what city this is, Gustav stated with a nonchalant tone. New novel chapters are published on Freewebben. Oh, welcome. I'll have to use force to return you to the medical center now, the officer said with a serious tone. You know what? Never mind. I'll just get out of here myself, Gustav said, as he reached out to touch his left wrist. My dimensional bracelet, Gustav muttered, as he noticed his dimensional bracelet was no longer strapped to his left wrist. Your possessions were taken away. Now will you come with me, or do I have to use force? The officer asked once more. Gustav stood there with a stupefied expression. How did they get it off? My storage device is missing too, along with the jewel. Gustav made a low sigh as he placed 2 fingers on his forehead. Where are they? Gustav asked. The Embio Tower in Plankton City. It's at 4,000 miles east from here, the officer said with a tone that depicted there was nothing Gustav could do other than just comply. 4,000 miles east from here? So this is Charlie City, Gustav said with a look of understanding. How did you? The officer was about to ask how Gustav figured it out, since he already mentioned he had no idea where they were. You practically revealed it. Anyone with a brain and knowledge would be able to figure it out, Gustav responded while shrugging. I'm pretty sure not just anyone would figure that out, from the distance revealed. The officer wanted to say this out loud, but kept quiet. Chapter 1009, you should have brought backup, so they asked you to bring me back to the medical facility. Yes. All by yourself? Yes. And how do you intend to do that? Huh? Where's your backup? I don't need any backup. Okay, get lost. Follow current novels on FreeWeb and OVL.com. Gustav turned around to leave at this point. Stop! The officer yelled as he pushed his palm forward. A burst of misty blue energy slammed into Gustav from behind, freezing him in place. I'm taking you back whether you like it or not, he said after freezing Gustav in place and began to step forward. No, Gustav stated as he regained control of his movement and turned around. The eyes of the officer widened in shock as he prepared to send out another attack. Tremble. A burst of whitish energy was sent forth from Gustav as he voiced out. The officer suddenly felt overwhelmed with an indescribable feeling as his knees weakened. Plop! He fell to his knees and nearly bowed, as well as he stared at Gustav with a look of disbelief and confusion. You should have brought backup, Gustav stated before turning towards the east. Lightning Blitz has been activated. The instant he leapt into the air, he turned into a lightning streak. Thriarias! The streak bolted across the air, and he disappeared instantly. A few minutes later, the officer had regained control of his body and was in the presence of 4 other officers on the same rooftop. What? You lost him? One of them voiced out with a furious tone. He was too strong. He defeated me with 1 word, the ice cube-headed officer said with a crestfallen look. You couldn't stop an Echo-ranked mixed blood, who has only been an officer for a few months after your years of experience. You're going to make us look bad now, the others voiced with looks of disappointment. We have to find him now. Which direction is he headed in? Another one of them asked. I don't think it matters if we go after him, the ice cube-headed officer said. Huh? Why? One of them asked. He's not running away. He's headed to the tower in Plankton City, the ice cube-headed officer stated. And how do you know this? The other one asked once more. He wants to get his things. The tower is always swarming with officers, so they can take care of him themselves, the ice cube-headed officer replied. Even if you're correct, we still have to go after him to make sure he doesn't harm anyone. Fuhush! A whitish line tore through the air as a figure flew across the skies with immense speed. I've never tried travel by flight. I mean, I have, but that was in an aircraft. It's truly interesting when I'm flying with my own power, Gustav said internally as his figure kept parting the clouds due to his speed. Well, at least now you can keep it up since you have a lot of energy and you're not going very far, the system responded. 4,000 miles is pretty far, though, Gustav replied internally. Not as far as touring across the entire Earth, the system voiced. Gustav, fair point. Lightning Blitz has been activated. ZHRRHHHHHH. Gustav crossed another 600,000 feet in an instant as he activated Lightning Blitz. The cooldown had ended, so he could activate it 4 more times before it went into cooldown mode again. This would shorten the distance by another 500 miles. Gustav estimated that he should arrive back in Plankton City in about 30 to 40 minutes' time. He had left a huge gap between himself and the officers chasing from behind. What exactly happened when I was asleep? Did I manage to absorb the cosmic superiority completely? Gustav asked, internally. What do you think? The system answered with a question. I feel more energized than before, more powerful. It's an odd feeling that I can quite describe. Gustav's face shone with a contemplative expression as he mentioned. To a certain extent you feel like reality can bend to your will, the system stated. Yeah, something like that. Gustav confirmed. Hee, it has begun. The system chuckled as it stated. What has begun? The MBO tower, stand down. A man in a red-colored MBO outfit commanded through a communication channel. Are you sure, sir? They stated that he might still be unstable and needs to be examined for a few more days before he is released. The person on the other end of the communication questioned. It doesn't matter. He is coming here, so stand down. Understood. Sir Xanatus, the person on the other end voiced, as the dialogue ended. Gradier Xanatus stood in a boardroom with a few other officers having a meeting. And you're sure he won't endanger the lives of anyone? One of the officers here, who was dressed in a high-ranking outfit, questioned. What better place for him to be than in the presence of other officers who are much stronger and can place him under control if anything goes wrong? Gradier Xanatus said with a casual but respectful bearing. I see your point, All right, Major Gradier Xanatus, but you will take the blame if anything goes wrong. The generals accepted for Gradier Xanatus' suggestion to not place Gustav in any isolation. The generals had no idea that Gradier Xanatus was mostly doing this because it was close to impossible to keep Gustav in a place he didn't want to be, and the whole situation could end up getting messy, so he had to take care of things on his own end. Gradier Xanatus sighed in relief after all the generals left the boardroom, and holographic footage appeared in his line of sight afterwards. It displayed an angle of a recording where Gustav said a word and caused the other officers' knees to buckle. Get rid of this footage, he commanded. 40 minutes later, welcome back, Gradier Xanatus voiced with a smile as a young man with dirty blonde hair walked into the boardroom clad in a patient outfit. Gradier Xanatus, you're alive. A smile appeared on Gustav's face as he walked towards Gradier Xanatus with two officers by his side. Chapter 1010 Trip Down Memory Lanes. Gradier Xanatus, you're alive. A smile appeared on Gustav's face as he walked towards Gradier Xanatus with two officers by his side. The officers besides him had solemn expressions as they stood by Gustav's side like they were escorting a prisoner. Leave us, Gradier Xanatus said to the officers. They nodded with respectful look before walking out of the boardroom. Gustav took a seat in front of Gradier Xanatus before speaking. Everyone has their guard up. So much around me. Was it that bad when I was unconscious? Gustav questioned. Yes, Gradier Xanatus answered bluntly before leaning on the side of the massive table. Follow current novels on FreeWeb, OVL.com. Your occasional energy disruption was on a seismic scale and even affected the battle during the fight against the infected, he added. I guess it must have caused more damage than I expected, Gustav said while holding his chin. Anyway, since I'm back now, everything is in control, Gustav added. I don't doubt that, but the higher-ups do, so in the meantime, don't go anywhere without me. They want me babysitting you to make sure no accidents happen. This was the bargain for your freedom, Gradier Xanatus pointed out. For how long? Gustav inquired. Till they've ascertained that you're stable and not dangerous to others, Gradier Xanatus replied. Gustav had a slightly troubled expression as he heard this. On the bright side, Gradier Xanatus was someone he was comfortable with, or he would have already threw tantrums. Don't worry, it won't be for long, but you have to be careful about how you use some of your abilities in public. You need to stay out of their eyes for now. Gradier Xanatus voiced out, hinting at the ability Gustav had used to put the kilo-ranked officer on his knees effortlessly. Sure. My possessions, I want them back, Gustav demanded. You will get them back, but first you mind telling me what happened on the battlefield 3 days back? Gradier's Anata's face shone a look of curiosity as he voiced out, Don't you have something to tell me first? How did the battle end? Gustav threw in this question as he pedaled back on his seat. Okay, well, trade answers. Gradier's Anatus responded. Gradier's Anatus went on to narrate everything that happened on the battlefield after Gustav lost consciousness. He added the part where he couldn't get Gustav out of Gisadinum's head for over 3 hours and had to leave him there due to the weird golden glow phenomenon. He went on to explain that it was only after 2 more hours that the officers managed to get him out and rid the place of Gisadinum's corpse. I could have stolen its bloodline too. What a waste, Gustav thought internally as Gradier's Anatus got to this point. Gradier's Anatus went on to mention how the numbers of MBO officers continued to dwindle without any hope of getting more reinforcements till the next 24 hours. He knew they would all be dead before then, so they kept trying to come up with a solution to all this. The MBO officers were running out of bloodline energy, AI droids were getting destroyed, and even the mixed blood machines were starting to get overwhelmed by the sheer number of infected in the vicinity. Despite Gustav managing to get rid of Gisadinum, it was a losing battle. After losing more than 70% of their forces, there were still over 4 million infected charging through. Red Shadow was found half dead, Gradier's Anatus stated. How is he now? Gustav asked with a look of concern. He is fine. Just like you, he was taken to a medical center to get treatment, and he is absolutely okay right now. He regained consciousness 2 days ago and is out of the hospital, Gradier's Anatus revealed. That's great. Gustav let out a sigh of relief. The same can't be said about the officer who found him. Gradier's Anatus had a sour look as he got to this point. The young officer? Fola? Gustav asked with a slightly worried look. Yes. Officer Fola made a sacrifice on that day after bringing Red Shadow back. Gradier's Anatus had a reminiscing look as he voiced out. We're almost out of comrades. They're close to breaching the east wall. A voice was heard on the communication channel. We can't send anyone in the meantime. We're barely holding on here too. Gradier's Anatus responded with a worried tone as he heard this. We're going to be done for in a few. Kyre. Screams of agony rang from the communication channel along with ripping sounds. Officer Fola had just dropped Red Shadow's bloodied, an unconscious body at Gradier's Anatus' feet. I'll go, Officer Fola said, as his body glowed up. Grab. You don't fool me. I know you're almost out of energy. Gradier's Anatus voiced out after grabbing hold of Officer Fola's arm. I'll go, you stay here. Gradier's Anatus voiced out. We really don't have time for this argument, sir. Everyone here needs you. You have to remain in command and pull everyone together. Your death will not help anyone, Officer Fola said with a tone of defiance before jumping into the air. Foosh. He flew speedily across the air before Gradier's Anatus could respond. Fola flew towards the east side, and just as they mentioned some infect had begun climbing up the walls. They barely had officers left in this area. He began attacking the infect he spotted upon getting here. Boom, boom, boom. Explosions rang out as he used the last bit of his energy to join them in repelling the infect here. HNNGHH. An ashy goo slammed into his side while in midair, causing him to fall. The infected who had sent forth this attack was blasted to pieces by another officer. Fola breathed in and out profusely as he stared at the large number of infected still charging towards the wall from up ahead. They had covered the entire area to the point where nothing else could be seen besides these ashy-skinned zombies that had refused to die. Chapter 10:11 The Sacrifice. I'm out of energy. I have to use it, Fola thought. Even though it won't be enough to eradicate them all, it would give them enough breathing space. He began charging towards the ranks of infected at this point. Everyone head back to the wall. he yelled out as he charged at them. Dash, what are you doing? Dash, where are you going? The officers here yelled out as they spotted him running towards the infected. Just do it. Take refuge on the wall. He yelled out once again as his body began to glow up. The officers stared with looks of confusion and disbelief, but no one could stop him now. He had already leapt into the ranks of infect and had himself surrounded by them. Follow current novels on Freeweb, OVL. Calm, with every passing second his entire body glowed, even more brighter. Take refuge, everyone. One of the officers shouted out as he realized what Officer Fola might be up to. Fola leapt into the air, once more drawing the attention of the infected further backwards as he distanced himself from the wall. Follow me, you fuckers, he yelled out as his entire body glowed. With so much purple light his skin began to melt. After he felt he had left enough distance between him and the wall, he finally let go of the energy he had been building up. Die. A wry smile appeared on his face at this moment. Boom. A loud explosion rang out as purplish waves of energy blasted across the vicinity. It was so intense that the infected within a radius of more than 20,000 feet were instantly incinerated. Everyone from the walls had looks of astonishment as they saw tens of thousands of infected disintegrate from the blast that also destroyed the user. Oh, he used his last energy to turn himself into a super explosive? Gustav muttered while holding his chin. Yes, his sacrifice was a great help, Gradius Anatus responded. How? Gustav asked this because he felt this was not nearly enough to take care of the situation when there were still millions of infected. Some minutes after his sacrifice, some of the MBO scientists reached us on the wall, Gradius Anatus explained. Oh, Gustav exclaimed. They had successfully created a cure for the ashy infection from the sample you passed to them, Gradius Anatus added. Gustav had an astonished look as he heard that. I really thought it would take them longer than that to create a cure, he voiced out. If Officer Fola hadn't made the sacrifice, the infected from the East Wall area would have managed to infiltrate before the cure arrived, Gradius Anatus stated. Gustav now understood why the sacrifice was the saving grace. The city would be gone now if Fola didn't perform that action. To put one's life on the line for people you don't know is already a great sacrifice. Talk more of actually giving your life to protect them. Gustav didn't know how to feel about it, but he knew it was a virtuous act. I don't think I can do that. He knew this within himself. No, you can't. You're selfish. And that isn't necessarily a bad thing, since staying alive sometimes requires selfishness. You're not good to anyone dead, the system voiced in his head. But is this what Boss Danzo wants me to be? A savior of mankind. Someone that is willing to give his life to protect others is definitely the kind of person Boss Danzo would be proud to call his son. Gustav thought. No, that's far from what he wants. Boss Danzo has a sentimentality for lives in general, but you're misinterpreting him. He wants you to do your own thing. Stay alive and chase your dreams, but not neglect the plea of others if you have the power to help their situation. You've been doing great so far, the system said with a tone of reassurance. Okay. Gustav heaved a sigh of relief as he said, Hey, this is actually the first time you've acted so nice to me, Gustav said internally with a suspicious tone. Shut up, dimwit. I'm just placing your virgin ass in the right state of mind, so you don't ruin things for us, the system stated. And there she goes ruining the moment, Gustav said internally. Hey, I'm no longer a virgin, Gustav added. You've only done with like once or twice, but still a virgin. Shut up, Gustav stated before phasing back to reality. So Luchin City is okay now? Gustav asked. Yes, besides a few renovation and cleansing. The city was saved thanks to the cure, Gradius Anatus responded. He explained that the cure was transformed into an airborne state by one of the MBO officers, which caused it to spread far and wide. The infected began dropping like flies since they were initially corpse. Those officers who had already been turned died completely after getting disinfected. That was how millions of infected were returned to corpses, and the city was saved. Besides the casualties from the MBO side, there was not a single casualty from the city residents. This is the best possible outcome. I thought it would end way worser than this. Gustav could not help but voice his satisfaction. How did you manage to create a cure sample? Gradier's Anatus questioned. That's a story for another time. What happened to the culprits that were apprehended? Gustav curved Gradier's Anatus question and asked his. They have been interrogated, and we got some information from them. Gradier's Anatus' tone sounded quite bothered as he got to this point. Gustav already knew there was something deeper with this whole situation, so he waited for Gradier's Anatus to spill. Watch this, Gradier's Anatus voiced out as he requested for the AI to play a footage. Turin, a holographic screen appeared in Gustav's front, and what appeared was the recording of a person. This person was obviously female due to the tone, as well as the long ash-colored silky hair that was spotted behind the helmet-like mask she had on. We are Jenxidus. She began speaking. Chapter 10-12 Becoming a Parallel Beings, We are Jenxidus. She began speaking. Her voice had been auto-tuned, so it was one couldn't identify her real voice. Our aim is to eradicate the mixed bloods and generally any supernatural being that exists on this planet. In the past, the world was less chaotic with just the humans and Slarkovs living on the Earth, but ever since the menace called mixed bloods came into existence, things change. We shall once again bring the world back to the ages of no supernatural abilities and nurture a world where only technology shall reign supreme. She paused for a bit before continuing. We failed in dominating Lechin City, which was amongst our plans to push forth our objective, but I assure you this is just the beginning. We won't stop until we've rid the world of mixed bloods. We are not terrorists, we are a liberation army. We are Jenxidus. Follow current novels on FreeWeb. OVL.com. 3as. The footage ended at this point. This played all across the world the day after the battle with the infected ended. Gradier's Anatus voiced out. We were unable to trace its origin and pinpoint the location or uncover the identity of this person who is suspected to be the group leader, Gradier's Anatus added. So, they were the ones responsible for the incident. Gustav voiced out. Yes, but they had helped. This group known as Jenxidus were funded by Young Joe in the past, which is also one of the reasons why the ones we caught had sophisticated weaponry and technological suits, Gradier's Anatus explained. And I'm guessing that's also how they got this variant of ashy infection. Gustav pieced things together at this point. Correct. They also had access to all his secret research bases where they stole a lot of items and became independent before we located those regions, Gradier's Anatus pointed out. Even after death, you're still a pain in the ass. Gustav shook his head as he voiced out. Young Joe's schemes were really deep-rooted to the point that the MBO might still take years before they managed to uncover it all. For someone with such a shrewd mind, it was unknown if one of his plans that would cause another big catastrophe in the future was currently in its hatching phase. The Jenxidus was another issue no one saw coming, and now it would be difficult to get rid of them with their high ability to stay hidden. Young Joe had left another issue, and Gustav was starting to wonder if he was truly dead. Hey, he's truly dead, right? Gustav asked, internally. You took his bloodline and killed him. What more proof do you want? The system questioned. Fair point. It's surprising the troubles one man without physical prowess can cause. If Jenxidus has half of his shrewdness and intelligence, then the world really has a lot to be worried about, Gustav said internally. On the bright side, this whole incident has helped you increase your strength, the system pointed out. True, every Young Joe-related encounter seems to have that effect. Maybe I should be happy his influence still remains. Gustav could feel his Yarky was now way powerful than before, and he was sure he had gotten a big boost, even though he had not checked. The MBO is really taking this serious. They have organized a special task force which sole objective is to hunt down members of the Jenxidus, Gradier's Anatus revealed. as they should. According to you, a small team of 7 almost caused the fall of an entire city, and thousands of MBO officers were slaughtered in the process. Yeah, it should be taken very seriously, Gustav stated. It makes sense that they're all Slarkovs. Turns out they're not happy with the current world system and are looking to mold things according to their desires by any means possible. Gradier's Anatus had a contemplative expression as he voiced out, "What happened with the culprits? Why were they not able to reveal information on the location of the others?" Gustav inquired. "Their heads exploded after we took them into custody," Gradier's Anatus responded. "Oh, looks like they already planned a way out. This is quite troubling for the MBO. I have other things to worry about, so I won't be bothering myself with this issue." Gustav recalled he had to investigate more on Serzil's research, now that he had the full information on all of them. "You still haven't told me what happened on the battlefield. You didn't pass out because you ran out of energy, did you?" Gradier's Anatus had a look of curiosity as he voiced out, "No, I did not," Gustav said with a reminiscent look. Hours later, Gustav sat in his room within the MBO tower checking out some things. He had changed out of the hospital wares and was clad in a black tank top with shorts. He had retrieved his possessions, and the MBO were currently not on his case due to Gradier's Anatus. They had placed him into Gradier's Anatus' hand to be watched and kept under control. Host attributes: name, Gustav Crimson level, 82 class, parallel being EXP, 135,000/45,200,000 HP, 99,000/99,000 energy, 64,000/64,000. Attributes: strength, 344 perception, 343 mental fortitude, 339 agility, 339 speed, 371 bravery, 341 intelligence, 343 charm, 119 defense, 342 vitality, 344 endurance, 341 attributes points, 81 underscore 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 underscore. Gustav checked his current host attributed data on the system. "So I am now a parallel being," Gustav said with a tone of expectation. The system had specifically mentioned times, without number, how difficult it was to not only achieve cosmic superiority, but also advance to the next stage after subparallel. Gustav had managed to get to the next stage in less than 3 years, whereas it took lots of being centuries to advance. Although Gustav knew well that the main factor for this increase was due to absorbing Gisodinum's cosmic superiority. A parallel cosmic superior being is many times more powerful than a subparallel. Your situation with Gisodinum was different because of 2 factors. The system analyzed Chapter 1013, The War. 1. Gisodinum getting reawakened and controlled by the ashy infection prevented it from being able to use cosmic superiority in the manner Gisodinum would originally use it. It became mindless after all. 2. Your cosmic superiority is far from being normal and has attributes that let it contend with higher cosmic superior beings. The system listed out. It makes sense since parallel beings can tweak reality to a certain extent, but Gisodinum never did that. Gustav said internally, "You do understand that this has never been done since the beginning of time, so be on the alert for compel 3ications." The system advised. Complications? Internal complications like what was happening when I was unconscious? Gustav asked. "No, not that. I never warned that it was unstable to absorb it, because it isn't. You have that absolutely under control after the 3 days spent unconscious." The system corrected. "Then, what type of complications?" Gustav inquired. "The type that comes with you attracting certain situations to yourself due to your fast growth. Like I mentioned at the time, that was the greatest defiance of the cosmos, and it's understandable in your case, but do expect complications in the future." The system added. "Wow, you said a lot without saying anything." Gustav felt the urge to grab the system and give her a good spanking if it had a physical body. "Get used to it." The system responded with an unapologetic tone. The system would always mention things like this cryptically, without giving an outright reveal. Gustav decided to keep this at the back of his mind for now, since he had other things to worry about. Gustav reached into himself with his senses as he closed his eyes. Deep within himself, he could now spot two oddly shaped things. The first one was the Yarki, which still looked like a scarlet-colored flame, while the second was a diamond-shaped, ethereal-looking item. The left part of it that made slight contact with the Yarki had some scarlet color, while the other part was golden color. It looked like the diamond-shaped, ethereal-looking item was still in color transformation state. That must be from Jasodnim. Why does it look like something else is shaping into existence beside it? Gustav could notice but one red dot beside the diamond, but it looked like it was nothing. He was intrigued, but he knew he would have to wait. Gustav really wanted to test out how powerful his Yarki was currently and check out more of the abilities he had unlocked with cosmic superiority, but he couldn't do that here. He couldn't risk activating Yarki in the presence of the MBO, since he didn't know how the extent of the new effects. They might see it as him getting out of control again, and he needed to keep things under the wraps. He decided he would test it out later, but very far from this location. "It's about time I studied the rest of Scientist Zill's research," Gustav muttered. "System, display the rest of the research," Gustav voiced out. "How about I just send it to your mind instead?" the system suggested. "Sure," Gustav answered. In the next few moments, information began to flow into his head in large amounts. Gustav was processing the ton of information very quickly that the system didn't have any issue displaying all of it in his mind. After a few minutes, Gustav opened his eyes with a look of understanding. "Interesting. He really went far in this research," Gustav muttered as thoughts began to appear in his mind. "Time to continue the research in his stead," Gustav voiced as he stood to his feet. Violet-colored glows coated his fingertips as he opened a spatial construct and moved in. Galalian galaxy thousands of spacecraft could be seen floating above a planet with a mixture of gray and red. These spacecraft were shooting at each other aside, having an unknown symbol on them, and the other side bearing the MBO emblem. Fire, 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 fire. Powerful shots were fired from every corner, and spacecraft were getting blown up by the minute due to the battle between the two sides. As this battle went on, it became heated by the second. Zryria, a loud sound suddenly reverberated across the vicinity like space was being ripped through. Fire. A man with handsome young looks and black hair appeared in the middle of this battlefield. He was clad in a long dark suit and didn't seem like he needed to breathe in space. His sudden appearance caused a big tension across the battlefield in space as an enormous stream of energy began gathering around him. The space all across this part of space began to tremble, and even the stars far away were being pushed away. Concept of time, he muttered underneath his breath as his eyes glowed a white color. Zing, 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 zing. Silver-colored chains wrapped around a ball of blue light appeared around all of the spacecraft with a different symbol from the MBOs on their spacecraft. Every MBO opposing spacecraft was covered by this circular blue light wrapped by silver-colored chains, and in the next instant, muffled screams were heard as every affected spacecraft withered and turned into ash within a split second. Just like that, thousands of spacecraft had been reduced to nothing. Dash, how dare you leave us to take care of other matters in the middle of battle? Dash, what insult! Jack of Earth! Dash, you destroyed more of our troops? 3 massive figures in form of dark gases appeared with deep white eyes. Their energy seemed menacing, and the spacecraft with MBO emblems in the vicinity began to speed out of this part of space so as not to get caught up in a brawl between these powerful forces. I'll deal with you three later, and it's Mac right now, not Jack. His eyes squinted as he threw a glare at them. Seeing, he sped off again in another direction of space where a battle was ongoing. Get back here. The three yelled as they sped after him, while also using their abilities to try to attack, but it was all to no avail. Chapter 10:14 Discoveries. So far's the three yelled as they sped after him, while also using their abilities to try to attack, but it was all to no avail. The same situation played out again as he arrived on another part outside this planet atmosphere in space. Zing, 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 zing. Thousands of spacecraft withered and turned into ash once more. Mac kept wreaking havoc all around this planet as he destroyed up to 50,000 spacecraft in less than a minute. He stood above the planet and stared at it as the three dark, cloudly figures chasing after him approached from another angle. It's time to end this. Has the machine not been found yet? I want to move in, he voiced out. Negative, that's what they want. We just had a team infiltrate. Wait till they get hold of the device before you swoop in. A voice resounded from the communication channel Mac was currently on. Sure, they better be quick with it. In running out of patience, Mac said with a strong tone before ending the dialogue. Bastard, you destroyed all of the spacecraft, one of these three cloudy figures voiced out from behind. Mac let out a tired sigh as he turned around to face them. Okay, now I have your time. Although this won't tail very long, he added with a disinterested tone. Yes, because we will be ending your reign now. Another one voiced out as a star began to form above Mac. That's what they said, he muttered as he slowly stretched out his hand. 1 month later, Gustav sat in a room with a look of contemplation as three holographic screens were displayed in front of him. So it turns out the displacement has a pattern. So far, it looks like things have slowly been disappearing in space within neighboring galaxies without anyone noticing. Gustav muttered as he stared at a footage showing on the left screen. In one moment, a space rock was visible, and in the next it had disappeared. The time of disappearance and visibility were different, but the main point was that it did disappear. While it is normal for space rocks like asteroids to get melted and disintegrated completely from the heat of the sun, this particular one had not reached the end of its lifespan yet. It was initially very massive, and such space rock would not just disappear in a week. The footage couldn't display how it disappeared because there was no time stamp for that. So it was unknown what caused it. It could also be a supernatural since powerful beings like Jack were strong enough to even get rid of stars, but Gustav had properly made his research. This wasn't only happening in one place, it had happened in so many other places in space, and who knows about the others one that weren't even documented. Gustav had clocked in one several patterns as well as the theories he had gotten from scientist Sill's research, but he knew well enough that all this was still not enough. With everything now, there's a high chance Planet Humbad might have gotten swallowed up by Warp Demolator, which may or may not be a spatial disrupting existence. The Warp Demolator is capable of transferring any object, no matter the size, to another place in space or another dimension entirely. It is impossible to predict, and so far no people don't know it exists or how it came into existence. The government sure have heard of it since they confiscated scientist Zill research, but I doubt they believe it exists, Gustav analyzed with a low tone. Remember, you have to discover these aspects yourself. I can't in any way render assistance. The system voiced. Yeah, I know. It's just almost like even with everything I have uncovered in the last month, I really still don't know anything. Gustav let out a slightly frustrated sigh as he spoke. Space is endless, so finding out when or where it's going to appear next was near impossible, but I can narrow it down to 2 galaxies on neighboring ends, but having to check out an entire galaxy, definitely a waste of time, Gustav added. On the bright side, you did gather a lot of information, though. Now, you don't doubt that Planet Humbad is still in existence anymore, the system stated. Yeah, but a lot of things are still confusing. If it was never destroyed, Why did the Slarkovs come to Earth in the first place? And why did they lie that it was destroyed? Gustav voiced out. These questions were mind-boggling, and if the truth ever got out, it would upset a balance that had been in place for thousands of years. Everyone was used to the tale of the Slarkovs' planet getting destroyed, with them having to leave, so they could escape its destruction. It would raise an alarm when people found out that tale had been wrong all their lives, and it had been a deceit that was passed down from generation to generation. Gustav confirmed that truly Planet Humbad wasn't destroyed with Sir Zill's research. A place within the fourth part had shown proof. Sir Zill initially funded his planetary dimensional displacement theory himself back when he started. Since he was quite rich, he was able to send some scientists to space to do an energy reading of places where the warp demolator had appeared. Expectedly, the energy reading of these places were the same energy readings with the spot in space where Planet Humbad used to be located. It had been thousands of years, and the energy of the warp demolator there had decreased significantly, but it was a match nonetheless. The location of Planet Humbad had truly been shifted by the warp demolator to an unknown place, and Gustav had to make sure he found it, or he would never be able to complete one of his 5-year quests. Why couldn't the Slarkovs just mention the true crisis was the warp demolator instead of saying their planet was destroyed? Chapter 10-15 5 years. Quest Progress Bonus Chapter dedicated to Wolf Eats the Moon. Your PayPal donation is much appreciated. Why was there a meteor shower of unknown parts from a planet which brought new energies to Earth? And why did the Slarkovs claim that the meteors were broken parts of their destroyed planet? Gustav could not help but think that there was a hidden motive or agenda somewhere, a 3,000 years agenda. What do they hope to gain? And where would it lead to? No matter how much Gustav thought about this, he just couldn't come up with an answer that he was 100% satisfied with. Either way, I have to attend ISOP and make more research, Gustav added. They're starting a worldwide training next month, the system announced. I'm not attending, Gustav voiced, as the holographic screens disappeared. I won't have the time, he added. From what I'm seeing, it's mandatory, the system stated. Meh, I still have to make more research in the meantime. Gustav had made up his mind about not attending the training, but he still wanted to be a part of ISOP. Maybe he'll show up on the last week of training, Gustav added. You do know the training holds for 6 months, which is also ending a few days before ISOP begins, the system pointed out. ISOP is in 6 months, Gustav said with a slightly startled expression. Yeah, I was informed ISOP nearly 6 months ago. Didn't realize how much time had passed, Gustav said with a slightly worried look. Don't worry, you still have around 3 years before time's up to complete the 5 years quest. The system voiced out. Actually worry. You should be very worried. The system added. Shut it, Gustav voiced, as he checked the status of one of his 5 years quests. Quests, duration, progress 39, 80/100%. 2 years, duration, progress 34, time elapsed 2 years, just 34% even after absorbing Gisadinum's cosmic superiority. Gustav made a low smacking sound with his lips as he voiced out. On the contrary, you should be commended for reaching this far, this fast, the system stated. If I were to calculate how powerful I will be by the end of this quest based on my current progress, I see myself failing this mission, Gustav voiced in response, which is why you still have to work harder and use every means at your disposal to make sure you complete the quest, the system said with an edging tone. Yeah, I might have to do something a little extreme one of these days, Gustav muttered as thoughts began appearing in his mind. However, he decided he would only take such measures when he was getting closer to the end of the quest, and his progression speed still isn't up to standard. Anyways, I'm going to be spending my time on Earth making more research about the warp demolator before ISOP arrives, Gustav said as he moved to a side to pick up his jacket. But of course, I can't neglect my training, so I have to make sure everything is balanced, he added as he walked out of his room. the MBO camp on a highly exalted platform, thousands of feet above the ground. A battle was playing out. Boom, bang, bam. Sounds of heavy collisions and explosions rang out as the cadets here battled intensely with one another. One of them, who was floating in midair with a big eye exposed on her forehead, shot out a destructive purplish beam. Boom. The beam slammed into a part of this massive platform, hitting one of the cadets here and sending him flying off the platform. "Falco, you're out," someone yelled from the side. This person happened to be an instructor who dived down and caught Falco in his arms. "Shut up, dimwit. I refuse to be defeated by lower life forms," Dark Falco voiced out without regard for the instructor. "Don't make me drop you from this height," the instructor voiced as he flew down. He dropped Falco along with others that had been blasted off the platform. "I demand a rematch, wench," Dark Falco yelled out with an unyielding expression, but the instructor had already flown back up. On the platform, only 4 more cadets were left: Alevra, Angie, EE, and Eldris. "You go right, and I'll go left," Eldris and EE voiced out simultaneously as they switched positions. Now EE was standing opposite Angie, while Eldris was staring at Alevra, who was floating in the air up ahead. "Now, don't take this personally, Angie," EE voiced out as vortexes began to appear all over the place. "I want," Angie responded with a smirk as she dashed forward. "Fwai." She had instantly arrived in front of EE, who was still conjuring vortexes, but she suddenly felt a pull from every direction. Angie felt like she was sinking into mud, as her figure almost paused while she moved at a snail's pace. "You're fast, but that doesn't mean I can't trap you," EE said as he slapped his palms together. The vortexes suddenly turned into reddish color in the next instant as powerful energy spread forth from his figure. On the other side, Eldris kept dashing from side to side across the place as Alevra sent powerful and destructive purplish blasts from the eye on her forehead. The large surface floating in the sky had to do a continuous self-repair because just one of these 4 was powerful enough to destroy it entirely with their strength. Eldris' eyes opened as he closed in on Alevra, causing the color of the vicinity to dissolve into black and white. Alevra suddenly found herself getting more sluggish, as this affected her as well. Eldris leapt up at this point and threw a punch forward. "You've gotten stronger, but..." "Grab." Alevra suddenly grabbed hold of Eldris' fist midway, stopping it with ease. "You're still not strong enough," she voiced out before turning him around and slamming him into the ground. Boom. Destructive waves spread forth as the vicinity regained color once more. Chapter 1016, Leaving Camps. Boom. Destructive waves spread forth as the vicinity regained color once more. Adries found himself trapped in place with Alevra's hand around his neck. He made a low groan and shut his eyes from the pain, which was what led to the environment returning to normal. "That's not nearly enough to get rid of me," Eldris voiced as he grabbed hold of her hand and opened his eyes. However, the moment he opened his eyes, Alevra covered his entire face with her other hand, restricting his eyes' abilities. Eldris grabbed onto her other hand and tried to rip it off his face, but it was obvious Alevra's physical strength outmatched his. After Eldris failed to remove her hand, Alevra kept choking him in a bid to make him pass out. Eldris proceeded to let go of her hands and slammed his hand onto the surface of this platform. Bang! A loud sound of collision rang out as both of them shot into air, causing Alevra to slightly loosen her grip. Adries raised his knee upwards with speed, slamming into Alevra's gut, which finally caused both of them to separate. The eyeball on Alevra's head glowed immensely as she shot out a destructive beam. At Eldris, the instant he managed to separate from her. Zurin, as the vicinity turned into black and white once more, Eldris' surrounding twisted, and he disappeared. Boom. The beam slammed into the platform, and Eldris appeared right behind Elevra while sending a fist towards her back. Bang! She got blasted towards the surface of the platform upon collision and slid for several feet due to the immense force. Elevra quickly picked herself up and dashed to the side. Swoosh! Eldris had appeared right beside her with an outstretched leg, which she managed to dodge after moving to the side. However, Eldris suddenly spread his legs, sending forth another kick from his other leg the instant after she dodged. Bang! This kick slammed heavily into Elevra's side as she was sent flying towards the side. Once more. Elevra was usually faster, but with the black and white surroundings slowing her down, Eldris could match her speed and even go faster under certain conditions. Boom! She shot out another beam from her forehead, which was threatening to return the vicinity to its original color as it phased forward. Adri stretched forth his hand at this point, causing the beam to be stripped off its color as his figure turned even brighter. Swoosh! He swerved to the side and dodged the beam before dashing forward. Bang! 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 They exchanged clashes a few times, and Elevra could tell that with every exchange Eldris was getting stronger. All of a sudden, bam! A figure slammed into Eldris from the side, causing him to get blasted backwards. Ugh! Ugh! And Eldris groaned in pain as they slammed onto the surface of this platform and slid across the floors. "Gadam, Angie, you almost broke my back," he yelled out as he stood to his feet. However, just as he did this, Angie arrived before him and sent out a very fast punch. Mouth was still wide open as he had just finished his sentence, but he was unable to follow her speed. Bang! The punch slammed into EE's gut, sending him flying across the platform edge. Angie had broken out of the hold from the vortexes, initially from activating a small kinetic discharge that blasted EE across the platform. This was what caused him to collide with Eldris earlier. EEOU. Just as the instructor was about to announce EE's loss. Zian. A vortex opened up behind Angie, and he appeared from it. Angie quickly spun around the moment she sensed his presence and was about to attack again when E got pulled back into the vortex. Another vortex opened up behind her. Zian. Angie moved quickly in a bid to attack once more. But E didn't appear from it. Instead, he appeared from another vortex on her right. E would disappear into a vortex before Angie could arrive there, and a dummy vortex would open all across the place to fool her. Zian. I'm here. Zian. No here, Zion. Over here, Angie. Zian. On the other side, Elevra had once more regained the upper hand and was slamming Eldris across the place to get him to pass out. Angie knew her battle with EB would not end if she didn't manage to get him to lose consciousness as well. EE could keep using his vortexes to return to the platform, even if she threw him off it multiple times. It was the similar for Elevra. Eldris got stronger the more he drew power from things with color in his vicinity. He had also absorbed the color from her eye attack earlier, which led him to getting stronger. About 30 minutes later, only Elevra was left standing on the platform. Elevra wins, the instructor yelled out. All other participants had been blasted off this platform, and she was the last one standing. What had just ended was a private training session between the 10. Elevra, Eldris, EE, Angie, Falco, Rhea, Glade, Vera, Matilda, and Teamy. They had been having personal training the past month in preparation for leaving the camp. During this time, they had trained vigorously and had lots of team battles and individual battles like this one that had just ended. Everyone had improved, and even Elevra, who was seen as the strongest, still had a difficult time winning. Anyways, the training had come to an end now that they would be leaving camp the next day. They had all been waiting for this moment, and it was finally here, their last day in camp, which was why they had this individual battles. I almost had you, EE, Angie voiced out as they walked away from the premises where they had just had the battle. Haha, better luck next time, EE chucked as he patted her shoulder. Are you excited that you're finally going to be seeing him again tomorrow? Chapter 10:17 The irregularity at the edge of the Milky Way earlier. EE had managed to get Angie off the platform by activating one of his Vortex's new skills, while Elevra managed to rid the platform of Aeldris. Unfortunately, EE was not a match for Elevra, who was not even affected by the suction force of his powerful vortexes. Besides that, he had expended a lot of energy, while Elevra still had lots revered. Elevra was still the undisputed, most powerful cadet in their set, after Gustav. As everyone grew in strength, she wasn't stagnated either. She was most likely the only person who was close to Gustav's strength amongst their age group, while Aeldris was right behind her. One of the boons of this whole thing was the fact that they had improved strength as a group, so if they ever fought together on a battlefield, they would be exceptionally coordinated. Gustav had wished they would be done with camp earlier because of this. He knew a lot of situations would have been easier to take care of if the gang were together with his. Are you excited that you're finally going to be seeing him again tomorrow? E questioned as the group walked together. HNMM. Angie nodded her head with an excited look. But what if we get sent to a different base entirely? Falco questioned. I'm sure Gustav is aware that we'll be out tomorrow, Timmy stated. It doesn't necessarily mean we'll see him. Who knows, he might be busy with something and not have the chance to meet us before we get deployed for missions, Aeldris said with a logical tone. Angie looked a little downcast as she heard this. She knew there was every possibility that happening. Don't forget, our main goal will always be the MBO and saving others. Seeing Gustav can always wait, Elevra said with a strong tone. My boy must have gotten way stronger, though. I can't wait to see him, E said with a light chuckle. The night went by very quickly, and the next morning arrived when some of the cadets were finally leaving. The 10 weren't the only ones who had ended their training and were leaving camp today. There were no less than 100 cadets who were now full-fledged officers, also leaving camp. Some were already final years, so it was long overdue, while the ones from Gustav's set leaving today were around 20 in number. All of them were special class candidates, and now full-fledged officers. E was so excited he kept taking pictures as they left camp. Yo, Mom, your son is now a true MBO officer, haha. He laughed with a joyous look as his device flew along with them while recording. That's Angie. Angie waved as the Kamara appeared in front of her. This is Aeldris. Elevra, Timmy, Rhea. He kept moving from side to side, so everyone could be recorded. They all waved with smiles and greeted EE's mother whenever the camera floated to their front. Falco, new novel chapters are published on LibRead. CM, nice to meet you, ma'am. Falco greeted with an innocent and respectful expression. TCH, another lower life. Dark Falco suddenly voiced out, causing Falco to quickly cover his mouth up. Sorry, Falco apologized as he moved to the side. No worries, Falco. F***CKU Dark Falco, E voiced out before turning to face the camera again. Sorry, Mama. He adopted an innocent look as he voiced out. At this point, they were on the massive floating platform where they would be taking a flight on one of the MBO spacecraft to an MBO base. A group of MBO officers suddenly approached EE and the others. With the way they were dressed, it was obvious that they weren't pilots, especially when one of them had an orange-colored uniform like the MBO camp commander. Anything we can help you with, officers? EE questioned as they blocked the path. The highest-ranking officer among this group of officers walked forward at this point and stood directly in front of EE, you, and you. He voiced out while pointing at 5 of them. You're coming with me, he added. Huh? EE exclaimed with a look of confusion. Yeah, I know they're arriving today. I'll have to head down to the second base if I want to see them. Gustav voiced out in his seating position within what looked like a boardroom and an office at the same time. I could send someone to get them, Gradier Xanatus suggested. Nah, there's no need for that. Besides, they also have to get 1 or 2 missions done before I can add them to my platoon, Gustav voiced. Is this going to be an issue? Gustav proceeded to ask. Getting them to join your platoon? Gradier Xanatus voiced out. Not that. This, Gustav voiced while pointing at the holographic screen displayed up ahead. Well, for now, it's just an assessment, and it is still being observed, so it is too early to tell if it's going to be a threat or not, Gradier Xanatus said, while also staring at the screen. On the screen apart in space was displayed. What could be seen here were whitish lines that made it look like there were small cracks in this part of space. Apparently it was very little, but it had only recently been forming at the edge of the Milky Way. I only showed you this now because I am aware of how strange things are with you and the manifestation of your abilities. So if you know something or sense something, don't hesitate to inform me, Gradier Xanatus explained. For now, it truly doesn't seem like a big deal, but no worries, I'll be sure to let you know if I find out something, Gustav voiced out with a suspicious tone. By the way, has scientists been sent there to investigate? Gustav asked. Yes, but they haven't discovered anything. It's not a rift because it doesn't have the same characteristics with a rift, but it does emit a weird and unknown energy, Gradier Xanatus replied. Chapter 1018. Where are the others? You know what that is? Gustav asked. Internally. It could be a number of things. It's too far away for me to come up with anything accurate. Trying to study it from here will just be me coming up with assumptions. The system responded. I don't know if this is something we should be worried about. Anything related to space is now a sensitive topic because of the warp demolator, but we can't tell if this is relayed or not. Gustav had a contemplative look as he said, internally. Gradier Xanatus, do keep me posted on this. I may or may not have an answer later, Gustav stated. All right, Gradier Xanatus stated. Gustav left after a few more seconds of chatting with Gradier Xanatus. He was now heading towards the second base. This would have taken time if he used one of the aircraft or MBO private jets, but with the dimensional bracelet, it only took a couple of seconds. Zing. Gustav disappeared from the MBO tower after choosing his location and reappeared back within the second base. The instant he arrived in the luxurious house within second base, he moved out towards one of the revetment. Gustav could already spot aircraft landing from in the southwest area. Hover has been activated. Swoosh. The base was always filled with MBO officers, so he decided to fly. Gustav arrived there in a few seconds, and upon landing he could already spot cadets. Gustav was only wearing a tank top and shorts, so no officer around here would even be able to tell what his rank was unless they recognized him. Dash, where is that powerful presence coming from? Dash, isn't that Gustav Crimson? Dash, hey, it's really Gustav Crimson. Dash, I could barely recognize him. He looks different, better. Dash, stronger. I wish we could have seen a fight between him and Rufus. The cadets, who were now full-fledged officers, conversed about Gustav the moment they spotted him. Dash, what is he doing here? The other officers who had been in the second base since questioned amongst themselves. Everyone knew Gustav was in the MBO tower in Plankton City, so they couldn't understand how he suddenly appeared here. Gustav. A familiar voice was heard from up ahead, causing a smile to appear on his face. A group of 5 could be seen approaching Gustav from up ahead. The hundreds of other cadets walking away from where aircraft were parked up ahead parted ways for this group because everyone knew, well, the only people Gustav moved with in camp. Falco, Gustav voiced out as he closed in on them. Crazy bastard, you got stronger again. Dark Falco voiced out the instant he arrived in front of Gustav. Shut up, Falco voiced before reaching out to give Gustav a fist bump. Bump. Gustav returned the fist bump and proceeded to do the same with Timmy as well. Rival. Rhea yelled out as he jumped into Gustav's embrace instead of giving a fist bump. Yo, Ria, Gustav chuckled. Matilda, who was about to hug Gustav earlier, reached out and dragged Ria by the hair. TSSSHHH. Ta-ta-ta. Ria screamed out in pain as he got pulled away from Gustav. Don't be girly, she voiced out. What I and my rival share is beyond gender limitations, woman. Ria yelled out as he tried to get her to let go of his hair. Vera, who was at the side, smiled and moved to stand in front of Gustav. Vera, Gustav said with a smile before she leapt into his embrace. Gustav rubbed her hair a little and patted her like a pet. I missed you, she said with a cute tone as she disengaged from him. How have you been doing? Did you practice a lot like I told you to? Gustav questioned. She nodded cutely with a smile. I'm now at the 3rd step falcon rank, and I can control my ability better now, she disclosed. Gustav had a gratified look as he heard that, but then a bothered expression appeared on his face. Where are the others? He inquired. So far he could only see Timmy, Ria, Falco, Matilda, and Vera. Falco stared at Matilda first before he turned to stare at Gustav. This is what happened. Minutes later, Gustav had a contemplative expression after hearing what Falco had revealed. So, they were scouted at the last minute for this unknown mission? Gustav inquired. Yes, Falco confirmed. The officers said they only wanted the 5 of them, and the rest of us should follow the cadets to the base, Matilda explained. So, you guys have no idea what mission they're embarking on? Gustav questioned. No idea at all. They were taken away in a different aircraft, Timmy said while shaking his head. Gustav had a slightly worried expression, but he knew well that the MBO wouldn't just send them on a mission recklessly, knowing they had a lot of potential. They would only send them on a mission they were sure the 5 could handle. Angie, speed. Matilda, destructiveness. EE, infiltration and escape. Eldris, power. Angie, strength and combatability. Gustav made analysis in his head. They are definitely sending them on a covert mission. Either they're meant to destroy, protect, or acquire something secretly, Gustav voiced out. How do you know? Falco questioned. Their lineup makes it obvious. Gustav responded. Falco and the others had looks of confusion on their faces as they heard that. Never mind, let's head to the house first, Gustav proposed. They proceeded to leave here and head towards the place Gustav usually stayed with Miss Amy whenever he was here. The instant they arrived at the house, everyone piped down and settled in even. They weren't too worried about the situation with E.B. and the rest because they knew well that getting picked for special missions was normal, especially when certain officers suited some types of missions. Rival, you have to tell us all about your escapades in these past months, Ria voiced out. The entire camp was always talking about you. You have a lot to tell us, Matilda stated as well. Chapter 1019 Mission in Planet Mendologas, I will in due time. I don't want to have to repeat anything I say later when the others get back, Gustav said while helping them settle in. Right now you guys should focus on getting a mission before ISOP training begins next month, Gustav added with a contemplative tone. Oh, come on, just a snippet. Falco was also interested in hearing all about it. They'll be back, guys, Gustav stated as he began tapping on his left wrist. Huh? Falco exclaimed. Need to head back to the MBO tower in Plankton City. I won't be long, Gustav explained. Dimensional travel in. 3, 2, 1, zing. A flash of bright blue light engulfed Gustav, and he disappeared in the next instant. Gustav reappeared within the same boardroom he chatted with Great Ears and Natus earlier. The instant Great Ears and Natus saw him, he knew something was up. Gustav explained what had happened with the other 5 to him, and Great Ears and Natus decided to help him check the mission they got drafted for. It's an outside planet mission. After some minutes of asking around, Great Ears and Natus finally had some information for him. They're off planet right now, Gustav was a bit surprised by this. Yes, it was impromptu, but they are currently off-planet, headed towards another planet, Gradiers and Ada stated. Where? Gustav inquired. Planet Mendologas, Gradiers and Natus revealed. Planet Mendologas? Why? In an unknown part of the galaxy, a massive spacecraft with the MBO emblem traveled at very high speed. It passed through several wormholes as it sped its way across the Milky Way. Within a group of 7 could be seen seated across one another in spacesuits. Besides this group of 7, 2 high-ranking MBO officers who were also clad in spacesuit strapped themselves in different spots. It was already obvious that they weren't a part of the mission like the 7. I certainly did not expect this, Eldris voiced out from the side. That we would be on a mission to a planet several galaxies away. He questioned with a light chuckle. Yeah, Eldris replied. The mission, it's certainly one we can successfully complete, Angie voiced out as well. The generals say we just have to get rid of the device or steal it, Elevra said with a tone of decisiveness. Glade was also in their midst, and they all began planning according to the information that had been revealed to them. They were all clad in dark space suits, which covered the entirety of their bodies, so it was hard to tell them apart, but their voices made things easier. Just follow our instructions, newbies. One of the other 2 were given the role captain, and co-captain of the squad voiced out. Sure. So long as you know what you guys know what you're doing. Elevra was not one that took to getting controlled unless the situation demanded it, so she voiced out with a strong tone that depicted she would disobey commands that didn't make sense to her. Are you assuming we're stupid and can't lead a squad? The one who spoke earlier voiced out once more. Don't put words in my mouth. Just lead right if you want to be followed, Elevra voiced out once more. The officer was about to speak again when the other one interrupted him. Davidson, it's fine. Well, see what they've got when we land. I hope to God that you 5 are capable enough or we'll leave you behind, the captain of the squad voiced out. Don't be so quick to assume, Captain Spark, who knows who will be left in the dust when we land, he said with a smile while turning to stare at Angie. If one thing the 5 had learned from Gustav despite being different from him was not backing down in the face of intimidation. They knew if they just left things without exchanging a few words with the captain and co-captain, it gave these 2 the chance to push them around anyhow they willed. Are we all getting along? One of the generals voiced out from up front. Yes, sir, they all yelled out in unison. Good. You 7 will have to work fast in unity and complete this mission. Once you're done, meet back at the drop zone, and an emergency spacecraft will get you out of there. Remember, you have to leave within the duration set, or you will die there, the general voiced out with a strong tone. Is that understood? He questioned. Yes, sir. They yelled out in unison once more. After the general went silent, the 5 went back to making plans. The second MBO base, their mission is off-planet? Falco voiced with a shocked tone. Yes, Gustav confirmed. How lucky. No off-planet mission is below 5 stars, Matilda voiced out with an envious tone. Officers with off-planet mission success are more revered and even have chances of being amongst the group of officers that get sent on galactic missions, Teamy voiced with a tone of interest. Not even Gustav has embarked on an off-planet mission before, Vera said with a low tone. There was never an opportunity to many situations happening on Earth that I couldn't ignore, Gustav pointed out. While Gustav was speaking with Gradiers and Natus about the mission earlier, Gradiers and Natus revealed something to him. They already sent a team earlier, but said team was wiped out before they achieved the objective. Only 2 of them are still alive. So it's also a rescue mission because the MBO never abandons one of their own, Gradiers and Natus voiced out. Oh, that makes things more difficult, doesn't it? Gustav questioned. They're your friends. Do you believe they are good enough to complete the mission? Gradiers and Natus threw out this question as well. I do, Gustav replied. Then it's fine. Gradiers and Natus stated. Oh, and by the way, they initially planned to send you on that mission. You ignored them, Gradier Xanatus revealed. What? Gustav had a look of surprise as he exclaimed. He then recalled General Sauerkraut looking everywhere for him at the time. He was creating a cure for the ashy infection. Chapter 10:20 I will be participating in ISOPSE then recalled General Sauerkraut looking everywhere for him at the time. He was creating a cure for the ashy infection. Oh, Gustav nearly face-bombed as he reminisced. Gustav's mind reeled back to reality at this point. It doesn't really matter anyways. We'll be leaving for ISOP in 6 months' time anyways, Gustav stated. Falco voiced with a curious tone. You've decided to participate? Matilda asked with a slightly surprised look. Yes, I will be participating in ISOP, Gustav disclosed. They all had excited looks as they heard that. But I won't be joining you guys in the training, though. Gustav added. The training is mandatory, Falco stated. Not for me. I'll be busy with other things, Gustav said with an unbothered expression. By the way, I got a mission for you 5, Gustav added. Everyone gathered around him. As they heard this, I will be able to add you guys to my platoon if you're able to successfully complete this mission. So don't mess it up, Gustav pointed out with a serious tone. Sure, just tell us what the mission is, Timmy voiced in response. My body is itching to finally be on the battlefield, ha ha ha, Ria said with an excited look. The day went by very quickly, and Gustav had spent this time making inquiries, passing information, and preparing the other 5 for their mission in 2 days' time. For EE and the others, they were still cruising across the galaxy due to the distance of Mendelega's planet. The galaxy in which Mendelega's was located was quite distant, and with the speed of the spacecraft, it would take no less than 4 days of traveling to get there. This was a huge step up compared to back in the past, when it would take many months for them to complete such a journey. This speed was made possible with the dimensional checkpoints placed in different parts of space that generated teleportation wormholes. They could beat time and travel way faster with these wormholes, letting them appear millions of light years ahead of their position. This shortened the travel, which made it possible for them to get there in 4 days. Even with these dimensional checkpoints constructed in different parts of space that made space travel faster, there were still journeys that would take weeks or months if they were way farther than Mendelega's planet. The group was lucky this travel would only be taking 4 days. This would mostly be a crazy experience for them. While on this journey, they noticed that they would occasionally stop at different locations. These locations in space had massive spacecraft that looked like mansions floating in space. They would be scanned by the officers from these massive spacecraft before they were given permission to resume flight. According to the generals in the spacecraft, this was usual protocol and was always needed to separate criminals from legal spacecraft. Space pirates were common in this age, and since space was endless, catching these criminals was always difficult. However, these space pirates knew not to ever try to cross paths with the MBO or any other power intergalactic force in space, so 99% of the times it was safe for MBO spacecraft. They rarely ever got attacked by any criminals in space. As the days went by, Gustav still stuck to his schedule of making more research about the warped emulator while training also. All right, guys, your mission will most likely take about 2 weeks to complete. And I don't think the others will take too long to complete theirs either. So we'll still be meeting back here after y'all are done, Gustav voiced out. Falco, Matilda, Timmy, Vera, and Ria all nodded as they heard that. Phew, our first 5-star mission, Matilda voiced with a nervous tone. Don't worry, you'll do good, Gustav said while tapping her shoulder. It'll be 1 step closer to being powerful enough to go after Daria if I complete this, she assured herself internally. Gustav saw them off to an aircraft that was waiting to cart them away to their mission location. After a few minutes, they were gone. Just met up after months, and they're gone again. Gustav shook his head. Being a part of the MBO was truly no easy task. Gustav now understood why more than 80% of the MBO was without spouses. Even those who had spouses probably didn't have the chance to spend a lot of time with them. Missions were unending, and there would always be one issue or the other. Jack and Mac were still unmarried even after living for over a century. Gustav was not even sure if they had ever dated anyone or had any romance with the opposite sex. He was sure he would have been the same way if Angie was not in the picture. MBO officers were truly lonely people in the aspect of romance, but at the very least Gustav was trying to bring all the people he cared about together. If he managed to get every one of them to be a part of his platoon, it would make things less lonely, since they would always be with him on any mission. Gustav proceeded to head back to the MBO tower after the 5 had left. He won't be seeing any one of them again till 2 weeks' time. And he was still a little disappointed he didn't even get to see Angie or EE, but he shrugged it off. It's just 2 weeks, nothing compared to months, Gustav said internally. You really miss them, don't you? The system questioned with a teasing tone. No, I don't, Gustav responded as he walked down the corridors of the MBO tower. Poor Gustav. He misses his lover, misses the kisses, misses the bedroom actions. The system kept teasing. Shut up. I don't me. Gustav. In the process of this bantering, a familiar voice called out to Gustav. Great ears, Anatus, Gustav voiced out as he spotted the figure that had just called out to him. Come see this, Great ears, Anatus said while leading him to an office within the tower. Chapter 10:21 Checking up on Miss Amy. Upon entering, a large holographic screen could be seen on display. This holographic screen showed a part in space. It was the same area at the edge of the Milky Way where white lines resembling cracks were spotted. It has spread, Great ears, Anatus voiced out while hinting at the holographic footage. I can see that, Gustav responded while moving closer to the screen. It could be seen on the screen that these white lines were not only longer, but had now appeared in multiple spots as well. Gustav's eyes squinted as he questioned, have the researchers figured anything out yet? Nothing at all. Even after all the readings, they still believe this isn't a rift, Grady Anatus responded. Can I get the data of the energy readings? Gustav questioned as he kept staring at the footage with a suspicious expression. It will take a while, but I can get it to you, Great ears, Anatus replied. How long? Gustav inquired. A few days. Okay. Gustav went back to his room after a few more minutes of discussing with Great ears, Anatus. Just like he had mentioned before, it would be dumb for him to just make assumptions without properly looking at different clues to investigate the situation. Gustav couldn't put his thumb on why he felt a sense of familiarity from this recent happening, but even with that, he still had no idea what could be causing this. His gut was never wrong, so he was sure that whatever discovery that was made in the future would be related to something he somehow knew. Great ears, Anatus had mentioned that whatever it was, the MBO had placed him and a few others in charge to make sure it was taken care of before it became an issue in the future. The MBO was all for prevention before cure. They didn't want to wait till it became an actual problem before tackling it, which was why they were already taking some steps to neutralize the cracks. Great ears, Anatus just had to inform Gustav because he wanted to remain posted about the situation, and it would help if Gustav knew anything about this. Now Gustav just had to wait till the data of the energy readings was gathered for him. After arriving back at his room, Gustav proceeded to sit on his bed cross-legged and began to channel his bloodline, almost at the 3rd step. I should be able to achieve it in the next 2 to 3 days, Gustav said internally as channeled his bloodline. He close to reaching the 3rd step of Echo rank at this point. Gustav still had one more bloodline rank boost pill. If he used this, advancing to the next step would have been instantaneous. It had been months already, but Gustav wanted to advance to the next step naturally, even though it was slower. He decided he would only use another pill in case of an emergency. I also have to check on Miss Amy today. Gustav decided he would check on Miss Amy by nightfall. It had been a week since he last checked up on her to be sure she was okay. Night arrived very quickly, and Gustav stopped channeling his bloodline at this point. Upon opening his eyes, he activated God Eyes. Life sign tracking has been activated. He proceeded to use this ability and instantly picked Miss Amy's life sign in his mind. Suwun, his mind drifted into another dimension as his sight displayed a different place. Gustav could sight some flaky-looking dust in the vicinity and a dark ground. Oh, the fog is lifting, Gustav said internally as he noticed this. The other times he had been checking on Miss Amy, the fog in the area always made visibility so bad he had no idea where Miss Amy could be because of this. Unlike the last time as well, there was also a little bit of brightness in the sky. He could see through Miss Amy's forehead, so view was limited unless she moved about. Gustav could only see in a particular direction and couldn't even see the sky properly due to this. Miss Amy suddenly tilted her head a little to the side, turning Gustav's vision slanted. This made Gustav see into the sky better, and his eyes squinted a bit as he spotted some strange things. There are no stars, moons, or even a sun, so where is this dim lighting coming from? He wondered. Gustav couldn't find a way to answer this question since he couldn't look around more than he wanted to. He could tell that Miss Amy was currently seated somewhere on this dark ground, just staring forward. He was unable to answer the questions plaguing his mind, as Miss Amy lowered her head and stared down at something she just pulled out of thin air. Gustav's eyes widened as an holographic image popped up in Miss Amy's line of sight. It was an image of both of them. Gustav had his mouth wide open like he was yelling in pain, while Miss Amy was seating on his back with a domineering loom. Gustav recalled this was taken during a training session where Miss Amy had totally dominated him. He gave up and was tapping out, but Miss Amy refused to free him and kept seating on his back. A smile appeared on Miss Amy's face as she reached out to touch Gustav's face, but her hand phased through the holographic screen. And it disappeared after a few more seconds, and Miss Amy went back to staring into thin air. Gustav wished he had a way to pass a message to her. He wanted to tell her of all his endeavors and how he had gotten rid of the bastard that put her in this situation. Sigh, Miss Amy. Just as Gustav said this, internally, Miss Amy turned her head left and right repeatedly. I must be getting delusional now, she muttered while face-palming. She felt she heard a very low voice, but not audible enough to make out the words, so she was sure she just hallucinated for a bit. Chapter 10:22 were closes. She felt she heard a very low voice, but not audible enough to make out the words, so she was sure she just hallucinated for a bit. If Gustav could hear what she was saying, he would understand that his thoughts just traveled across galaxies into Miss Amy's mind, even though it was barely audible. He would have tried better to make it work, but Atlas, he had no idea Miss Amy heard a little bit of what he said. Must be because I expended too much energy today. But in breaking through, so it wasn't a useless endeavor, she voiced out what she thought was the reason for her hallucination while looking around. Gustav could sense her loneliness despite Miss Amy being the kind of person that stayed away from people. At this point, Gustav had to deactivate life signs tracking due to expending a lot of energy. The farther the location of the person's life signs that he was currently tracking, the more energy would be expended. With how much energy was being expended currently, he was sure Miss Amy was very far away. He still wished he could find a way to tell her to come back to Earth, since there was already a cure. However, there was still no clue as to where exactly she was in the vast and endless space. It was even more confusing with what Gustav had seen this night. Another thing that baffled Gustav was the fact that she had been gone for months, yet she doesn't seem to have spiraled out of control like the other infected. Her mind was still sane, and she didn't feel the need to go on any rampage. Gustav had even spotted her hands and part of her wrists multiple times when he checked on her, and from what he noticed, her skin wasn't ashy. She still seemed a bit pale, and it was hard to give a 100% accurate analysis of her skin. Looks due to the dim lighting in her vicinity, but Gustav could still tell that her skin was not as ashy as the other infect. Doesn't she have any plans of fixing things, ABD coming back? Gustav was quite worried that he might never be able to set eyes on Miss Amy in the flesh. There was no way to know how exactly she was faring, but all he knew was the fact that she was currently all right. If Gustav had left life signs tracking active for a few more seconds, he would have noticed something that would have helped since Miss Amy looked around after he deactivated the ability. They're never going to find her if she doesn't want to be found. I guess I can only hope and keep looking for ways to actually contact her, Gustav thought. He went back to channeling his bloodline afterwards, which he focused on for the entire night. In a flash, 3 more days had gone by, and on this day, Gustav planned to visit a particular research center, Cartonsbull City. It'll be in and out before anyone realizes it, Gustav thought as he stood to his feet to prepare. He got into the bathroom, took his shower, and was out in a couple of minutes. Gustav wore a suit and a tie along with plain black pants that made him look a bit nerdy. To add the ultimate touch of nerdiness, he got a glass with clinical lens from his storage device and put on. Gustav moved to stand right in front of the mirror as his facial features and body size changed. Gustav reached a height of 7 feet as his body turned thinner and his skin a little paler. His hair became yellow in color as he adopted a very different but handsome young nerdy look. Gustav smiled with a tone of gratification after scrutinizing his current looks. "Time to go," he said internally as he activated his dimensional bracelet. Gustav was currently heading to the secret research center, where Amira's mother from the Bureau was making research on scientist Zill's dimensional displacement theory. Despite knowing the location since over a month ago, Gustav didn't head there all this time. He didn't have much hope for this visitation, but he wanted to make sure he checked a couple of things out related to scientist Zill's research completely before embarking on this journey. He was sure this wouldn't take long anyway, since he would be visiting with the identity of a scientist from the Bureau. It was a fake identity, but Gustav had planted it in the database, so even if this person did not truly exist, he would have no problem using the identity. Meanwhile, on a planet with red sands and a grayish-looking sky filled with green stars, a group of 7 silently made their way across a silent pathway. This pathway seemed to be situated between what seemed like 2 massive pipe-like structures. It was impossible to tell that the 2 structures by the side were like pipelines if one was walking on this path due to their massive sizes. However, if one was staring from above, far high in the sky, one would be able to tell that these looked like massive steel pipes. The GPS says we'll have to turn right after crossing another 100 feet. One of the members of this group, who was also clad in dark skin-tight suit, voiced out. They were all clad in this suit and had a dark helmet with red glasses on as well. This helped them in breathing within this foreign planet. "Davidson, how far away are we from the designated point right now?" The person who seemed to be the leader of the group inquired. 12,000 paces away, Davidson responded while staring at the holographic image the device in his hand was shooting out. "We're close. At this pace, it should only take us about an hour to get there," Eldris voiced out. "We've been traveling for almost 12 hours. At least we're close now," Glade said with a tone of relief and excitement. "Guys, but how is it that we've not encountered any form of disturbance since we dropped onto this planet?" He stated with a disturbed tone. Chapter 10:23-2. "Do you know what that is?" Gustav asked internally. "It could be a number of things. It's too far away for me to come up with anything accurate. Trying to study it from here will just be me coming up with assumptions." The system responded. I don't know if this is something we should be worried about. Anything related to space is now a sensitive topic because of the warp demolator, but we can't tell if this is relayed or not." Gustav had a contemplative look as he said internally, "Gradiers and Adis, do keep me posted on this. I may or may not have an answer later. Gustav stated. All right, great ears, Anatus stated. Gustav left after a few more seconds of chatting with Great Ears Anatus. He was now heading towards the second base. This would have taken time if he used one of the aircraft or MBO private jets, but with the dimensional bracelet, it only took a couple of seconds. Zing! Gustav disappeared from the MBO tower after choosing his location and reappeared back within the second base. The instant he arrived in the luxurious house within second base, he moved out towards one of the revetment. Gustav could already spot aircraft landing from in the southwest area. Hover has been activated, swoosh. The base was always filled with MBO officers, so he decided to fly. Gustav arrived there in a few seconds, and upon landing, he could already spot cadets. Gustav was only wearing a tank top and shorts, so no officer around here would even be able to tell what his rank was unless they recognized him. Dash, where is that powerful presence coming from? Dash, isn't that Gustav Crimson? Dash, hey, it's really Gustav Crimson. Dash, I could barely recognize him. He looks different, better. Dash, stronger. I wish we could have seen a fight between him and Rufus. The cadets, who were now full-fledged officers, conversed about Gustav the moment they spotted him. Dash, what is he doing here? The other officers who had been in the second base since questioned amongst themselves. Everyone knew Gustav was in the MBO tower in Plankton City, so they couldn't understand how he suddenly appeared here. Gustav, a familiar voice was heard from up ahead, causing a smile to appear on his face. A group of 5 could be seen approaching Gustav from up ahead. The hundreds of other cadets walking away from where aircraft were parked up ahead parted ways for this group because everyone knew, well, the only people Gustav moved with in camp. Falco, Gustav voiced out as he closed in on them. Crazy bastard, you got stronger again. Dark Falco voiced out the instant he arrived in front of Gustav. Shut up, Falco voiced before reaching out to give Gustav a fist bump. Bump. Gustav returned the fist bump and proceeded to do the same with Timmy as well. Rival, Rhea yelled out as he jumped into Gustav's embrace instead of giving a fist bump. Yo, Rhea, Gustav chuckled. Matilda, who was about to hug Gustav earlier, reached out and dragged Rhea by the hair. TSSSHHH. Ta-ta-ta. Rhea screamed out in pain as he got pulled away from Gustav. Don't be girly, she voiced out. What I and my rival share is beyond gender limitations, woman, Rhea yelled out as he tried to get her to let go of his hair. Vera, who was at the side, smiled and moved to stand in front of Gustav. Vera, Gustav said with a smile before she leapt into his embrace. Gustav rubbed her hair a little and patted her like a pet. I missed you, she said with a cute tone as she disengaged from him. How have you been doing? Did you practice a lot like I told you to? Gustav questioned. She nodded cutely with a smile. I'm now at the 3rd step Falcon rank, and I can control my ability better now, she disclosed. Gustav had a gratified look as he heard that, but then a bothered expression appeared on his face. Where are the others? He inquired. So far he could only see Timmy, Rhea, Falco, Matilda, and Vera. Falco stared at Matilda first before he turned to stare at Gustav. This is what happened. Minutes later, Gustav had a contemplative expression after hearing what Falco had revealed. So, they were scouted at the last minute for this unknown mission? Gustav inquired. Yes, Falco confirmed. The officers said they only wanted the 5 of them, and the rest of us should follow the cadets to the base, Matilda explained. So, you guys have no idea what mission they're embarking on? Gustav questioned. No idea at all. They were taken away in a different aircraft, Timmy said while shaking his head. Gustav had a slightly worried expression, but he knew well that the MBO wouldn't just send them on a mission recklessly knowing they had a lot of potential. They would only send them on a mission they were sure the 5 could handle. Angie, speed. Matilda, destructiveness. EE, infiltration and escape. Eldris, power. Angie, strength and combatability. Gustav made analysis in his head. They are definitely sending them on a covert mission. Either they're meant to destroy, protect, or acquire something secretly, Gustav voiced out. How do you know? Falco questioned. Their lineup makes it obvious. Gustav responded. Falco and the others had looks of confusion on their faces as they heard that. Never mind, let's head to the house first, Gustav proposed. They proceeded to leave here and head towards the place Gustav usually stayed with Miss Amy whenever he was here. The instant they arrived at the house, everyone piped down and settled in even. They weren't too worried about the situation with EB and the rest because they knew well that getting picked for special missions was normal, especially when certain officers suited some types of missions. Rival, you have to tell us all about your escapades in these past months, Rhea voiced out. The entire camp was always talking about you. You have a lot to tell us, Matilda stated as well. Chapter 10:24, creating a diversion. Jack could have destroyed the entire planet long ago, but he wasn't allowed to, and he wasn't allowed to infiltrate either because they couldn't risk it, so he had to wait till they had gotten rid of this device. Can you get us in now? Captain Spark questioned. Getting us in was never the problem. E rolled his eyes as he figured Captain Spark didn't understand his initial explanation. From what I'm seeing, I can make us appear anywhere within now, but as you can see, the entire place is swarming with them. We will be surrounded the moment we appeared within, E added, while staring at the X-ray like holographic footage. Captain Spark had a contemplative expression as he stared at the footage for a bit. We have 2 missions on this planet, retrieving the device and rescuing the other 2 officers from the group that was initially sent here. He began voicing out. We'll be splitting up because the moment they know we're here, it's going to be harder to find the other 2 when we're done completing the first mission. Captain Spark added. Oh, okay, so what's the plan? Eldris inquired. It's time for us to see how fast you are, Captain Spark voiced while staring at Angie. Angie's eyes squinted as she heard that. A few minutes later, the guards standing in front of the cave entrance at the foot of the rock stared in a particular direction after sensing something. And asterisk at pound percent underscore. Asterisk divided by at caret underscore. The first one spoke in a weird tongue, as the other one also stared forward with a look of suspicion. A figure walking towards them from up ahead became even clearer when the person began causing a certain silver glow in the surroundings. She had 3 horns protruding out of her forehead, and her pinkish and silver hair could be seen floating in the air as she took steps closer to the rock. Hashtag ++ equals percent and at caret : caret. Percent at caret at. The other guard who voiced out the same weird tongue, which translated to, it's an alien. It quickly raised an alarm as Angie arrived close to the entrance suddenly. Boom! A burst of silver energy blasted forth from her figure, slamming heaving into the massive rock, and the dark, cloudy figures floating in front. The 2 were instantly disintegrated by the sheer force of the energy that wasn't even a cumulateto 100% GBBB. The entire rock trembled vigorously, but surprisingly, that was the highest that happened. Despite how strong the energy was, it didn't even manage to cause a single crack on this massive rock. Loud voices in different tongues suddenly began to ring out from every direction as the other Mendalogas began flying out of the cave to confront the intruder. In barely a few seconds, more than 200 of them had appeared and surrounded Angie from every direction. The 3rd horn that had grown out of Angie's forehead earlier rescinded as she regained her former look. Angie's figure suddenly blurred as she turned around and sped away. Swoosh! The Mendalogas, who thought she couldn't escape because they had already surrounded her, were shocked when she displayed immense speed and wriggled her way out of their formation. The yells in a different tongue was heard once more as they turned around and gave a chase. The over 200 Mendalogas gave chase to Angie as she sped further away from the rock structure. They had no idea she was leading them away so the others could have easier entry into the rocky structure. Angie would occasionally slow down so the Mendologas could close in a bit, only for her to speed up again. The Mendologas shot out whitish beams from their face area as they chased after her, but Angie was quick enough to dodge these projectiles as she led them around the place. Soon, a vortex opened up within a hallway in the rock structure, and the captain, Elevra along with EE, phased out of it. Davidson, we're in. Direct us, he muttered through the communication channel. Dash, take the first left. Be careful, there are guards patrolling that pathway. Davidson informed from a hidden location outside of the rocky structure. While the three infiltrated to get the device, Angie led the Mendologas around with her speed. She felt she could do this all day because despite their flight ability, she was still faster than them. Glade and Eldris had been tasked with finding the other two officers who were said to have gone into hiding after the unsuccessful mission. This second objective wasn't as important as the first, which was why they wouldn't be blamed if they were unable to find these two, but at the very least they had to try. Earth, oh, interesting, truly interesting, madam. A slim 7 feet tall young man in glasses voiced out with a hearty smile as he spoke to a middle-aged-looking woman with blonde hair. Mr. Eisbecht, I truly hope the world government do not intend to pull their funding on this research, the blonde-haired middle-aged woman said with a pleading tone. It is to be debated, Mrs. May. So far I have seen that there have been progress with the research, so I will put in a good word for you, Mr. Eisbecht, who was actually Gustav in disguise, voiced out. Thank you so much, Mr. Eisbecht. It would truly be a shame if the funding was to end, and this research ends up being accurate in its topic. It could potentially save the world if more discoveries are made. Mrs. May responded with a tone of appreciation while explaining. I absolutely understand, Mrs. May, Mr. Eisbecht said, while staring through a glass wall where a lab full of scientists could be seen. An instrument with a circular top and thin pole, like glass extending from the bottom, could be seen making some weird calculations. Are you sure you did not leave out any information or discoveries? Mr. Eisbecht questioned. None at all. The data I passed to you is everything we have found out in the past few years, Mrs. May said with a tone of certainty. I guess this concludes my visit here today, Mr. Eisbecht said, while smiling. Chapter 1025. Heading to the Edge of the Milky Ways. I apologize for the chapter's issues. I guess this concludes my visit here today, Mr. Eisbecht said while smiling. They proceeded to both give their farewells before he proceeded to leave. Eisbecht, who was Gustav, reached outside and got into an hover car that drove him across the city. After getting down, he moved to a secluded location and activated the dimensional bracelet. Zing! Reappearing back within his room in the tower, Gustav smiled as he transformed back into his original look. Today had gone exactly as he wanted, and he had gotten information about how far they had gone in secretly conducting Sir Zill's research. Mrs. May was Amira's mother, and Gustav had successfully fooled every one of them over there that he was from the world government and here to inspect, so of course they had to reveal all their findings to him. Gustav was not stupid himself, so he had already discovered most of the things Amira's mother revealed to him, but there were still a few pieces of information which he considered were quite important. Gustav's fingertips suddenly glowed up as he opened a spatial room. He proceeded to move into the room that had lots of equipments within. It was literally a mini laboratory. Gustav proceeded to check for some tools and began making something. It's good that they created a device to scan for irregularities in space. This would make it easier for me to find traces of the warp demolator and discern its patterns of appearing easier. Gustav thought as he kept up with his work. They had revealed the blueprints used in making that device so Gustav could build it easily with the right tools. Zing, the sacred orb appeared right beside him and turned into a 12 feet tall robot. Keep working on it. I need to get some tools, Gustav commanded. The sacred orb and Gustav were connected, similar to how Gustav and the system were connected. So even without giving any explanations, the orb understood what Gustav was driving at. It was quite strange, and Gustav still wondered how the sacred jewel was capable of 90% of the things it could do. It was still such a mystery to Gustav that he refrained from using it most of the times, even though he knew just how powerful the sacred jewel was. Gustav moved out of the spatial room at this point to get some more of the equipments he needed to finish the device. Just as he walked out of his room, he spotted Gradier's Anatus approaching from the left side of the corridor. "Gustav," Gradier's Anatus voiced with a tone of urgency. "What's wrong?" Gustav questioned. Minutes later, they were in the same boardroom they had been meeting up in earlier, and a holographic screen was on display. They have connected to each other? Gustav voiced with a suspicious tone as he stared at the screens. Precisely. The white lines have now connected to each other. And now it's starting to look like a gigantic circular crack in space, Gradier's Anatus responded. What they were staring at was exactly how Gradier's Anatus had described. This area in space was at the edge of the Milky Way, and it was void of stars, but this white cracks covering a large area were glowing intensely. Initially, they were separated and just appearing in different spots, but now these lines had joined. The cracks had spanned across more than 50,000 kilometers radius in space, and looked like it was still increasing. "And I'm guessing you guys still have no idea what's causing this," Gustav voiced out. Gradier's Anatus shook his head lightly in response. "Was there any effect when the researchers got closer to it?" Gustav asked. "It is impossible to get close to it now." The last person that tried turned to ash, Gradier's Anatus revealed. "What? Without getting pulled into any sort of portal or vortex?" Gustav said with a surprised tone. "None whatsoever." Spacecraft are getting ripped apart because, unlike before, it is now sending forth a detrimental charge of energy. It has become dangerous to move close to, Gradier's Anatus disclosed. "That's not a rift. At least a rift would pull a person in before ripping them to shreds or turning them to ash." Gustav had a contemplative expression as he voices out while holding his chin. "We can't get close enough to it at this point to get a sample and conduct a test based on the current energy it is emitting," Gradier's Anatus added. "Do you want me to go there?" Gustav asked. "No, I am only informing you about it for two reasons. First, you may know something, so it's also like him asking for advice, and second, you mentioned you wanted to be kept to date, but there is no way I am sending you there," Gradier's Anatus said while shaking his head. Minutes later, some straps bonded around Gustav's body as he sat within what looked like an aircraft chamber, but with more intricate designs. The seats on the other sides were unoccupied, and only one person stood in front of him at this time. "Are you sure this is okay?" Gradier's Anatus voiced with a disturbed tone. "I am going to be perfectly fine. You've only been sending scientists out there who are clearly weaker than I am," Gustav voiced as he tapped on his left shoulder area. Suwunne's dark helmet phased out and covered up his head. "Zion." A red glass shifted from sideways and covered the space in the eyes area of the helmet, completely giving Gustav a spaceman look. "I'm still skeptical about sending you there. It is not safe, and I don't want the young miss to kill me, because that's what will happen if you don't get back in one piece," Gradier's Anatus voiced out once more. "Don't worry. Besides, we're already here. So what's the point of changing your mind now? Just flow with it. Haha, don't worry if she kills you. You can come join me in the afterlife," Gustav chuckled lightly as he voiced out. The suit with the helmet had made the tone of his voice sound mechanical due to it projecting his voice from within, so it could be heard properly. Gradier's Anatus let out another sigh before saying once more, "Be careful. The moment things feel dangerous, abort the mission instantly." Gradier's Anatus proceeded to move towards the entry point of the spacecraft, while voicing out, "They'll be in contact the entire time, and there's a cam in your suit, so we'll be watching you as well." "Copy that," Gustav voiced in response. The hatch of the spacecraft closed up, and Gustav was the only one left in this place. The pilot and co-pilot were both seated in the cockpit, ready to launch the spacecraft into space. This mission was a very impromptu one and hadn't been revealed to the higher-ups because Gradier Xanatus was considered a higher-up himself and could make this decision before information them on a later date. Since they had put him in charge of the situation, he was licensed to make such decisions that would affect the situation for the better. Gustav had managed to convince Gradier Xanatus to send him on this earlier. As much as Gradier Xanatus didn't want to agree to it, Gustav made pretty valid points about being the only strong officer close to being a scientist himself. He had found the cure for the ashy infection and even achieved some crazy science feats, so he wasn't wrong. It looked like he was the perfect officer for the job, especially when most scientists were not very strong mixed bloods. Gradier Xanatus could only hope now that Gustav would be okay. The aim of this trip to the edge of the Milky Way was to take a sample from the energy these conjoined cracks were emitting. They had not been able to get close enough to get this done, since the cracks started connecting to each other. According to the scientists that survived, they said it felt like getting closer to the surface of the sun. Spacecraft nowadays were capable of doing this without burning up, but according to the scientists, this was at least 7 times worse. Gustav really couldn't bring up any theory on how this would be 7 times hotter than the surface of the sun when there wasn't any catalyst. There were just lines, or rather cracks in space that had covered a radius bigger than the circumference of Earth. It certainly was suspicious, but still didn't make sense. Gustav was counting on the fact that he would be able to gather the energy sample without getting too close to it. He was confident in the toughness of his body, but this was 7 times hotter than the sun. He wasn't interested in testing out if his body was durable enough to withstand it. 3 Ryrioth, right outside the spacecraft. A burst of flames had been ignited from the bottom of this building-sized machine. Chapter 1026. Guardians consents right outside the spacecraft. A burst of flames had been ignited from the bottom of this building-sized machine. The spacecraft lifted off into the air after getting cleared for takeoff as the rooftop of the MBO Tower's last floor opened up. Since they were already in space, there was no need for any part of the spacecraft to dislodge or anything like that. They flew across space, traveling at a speed that was 1,000 times faster than sound at the onset. As the spacecraft traveled further into space, it breached the speed of light, generating a wormhole that increased travel speed. Originally, it would take very long to get to the edge of the Milky Way, but with the speed of the spacecraft, it would only take about a day. Gustav was already admiring space as they blasted through the wormhole before arriving at another part of space. In just a few minutes, they had long passed Jupiter and were heading further into the Milky Way. Even if a spacecraft was moving at the speed of light, it would still take billions of hours before it could get to the edge of the Milky Way. This was how vast space was. With the ancient spacecraft, one would be spending millions of years traveling before they could get to the edge of the galaxy, and humans never lived that long. If it wasn't for the technology of the Slarkovs that had been improved over the thousands of years, the time frame wouldn't have been decreased from millions of years to just a single day. At the moment, the spacecraft was moving at 20 times the speed of light, uninterrupted. They would occasionally cut through wormholes and have their journey decreased by up to 20,000 light years. The extreme jump wormholes didn't need to be used, as they were only leaving for the edge of the Milky Way, and not somewhere farther. "It's more exhilarating than I expected," Gustav said internally as he looked through some of the small glasses in front of him. He couldn't count the number of times they had penetrated stars, yet they came out unscathed without the star causing any damage to the spacecraft or the spacecraft destroying the star. It was impossible to truly follow the speed of a spacecraft, which was why they were always clad in these black technological spacesuits, which usually helped in increasing their reflexes and sensory ability. If something were to truly ever happen in space, like an emergency with space pirates or any other issue, the spacecraft would have to stop or slow down. because Gustav doubted anyone would be able to act with such speed. Gustav was counting down in his mind as they journeyed across space, ready to complete his mission. The MBO camp. Endrik, we're letting you leave in good faith that you are ready to become an officer, one of the instructors voiced out to Endrik in the camp hall. I am ready, sir. I have completed all training like you wanted me to and passed all the tests, Endrik responded with a respectful tone. We know that, but in the end, you're still a 13-year-old boy, 3 years away from becoming an adult. We need a parental or guardian consent before we can make you a full-fledged officer without having to worry about the laws preventing a minor from working, the instructor voiced out. Endrik instantly thought of his parents, but then he recalled the nasty household situation. They won't be seen as proper guardians since they're currently in the psychiatric ward. Can I have my brother give the consent? Endrik asked with a tone of curiosity. You mean Officer Crimson? The instructor was a bit surprised as he voiced out. He recalled these two have had serious issues in the past, and Gustav even changed his family name, erasing his Oslov identity. So he wasn't expecting this. Yes, Endrik answered. But he is no longer a part of your family, the instructor voiced out. He can fill in as my guardian. Does it matter? Endrik stated in response. Since he is of legal age and has ties to you, then I guess he can. He just has to agree to go through the necessary procedures, the instructor explained. Leave that to me, Endrik voiced his reply. He was a little bothered, but it was about time he met up with Gustav again, especially since he had messages to convey to him. All right then, you can leave camp, but don't forget to send me the consent application before next week, or you will be brought back to camp and made to train till you're of legal age, the instructor voiced out before leaving. The lady at one of the counters passed Endrik some clearance data for leaving the camp as well before he headed towards one of the massive mirror pathways within the hall. Endrik should have left camp with the others earlier since he was also a special class candidate and had improved just like the others. Endrik had completed missions on the same level as the others and was ranked amongst the top 10 strongest in their set. Even ranked higher than Falco, Timi, Glade, Vera, Rhea, Angie, and was said to be on par, or more powerful, than Ibi. It was still debatable as to who would win in an all-out fight between Endrik and Ealdris, but Endrik being this strong made him worthy of also finishing his training in camp earlier. The only problem was his age, which would be a problem if he didn't get a parent or a guardian to give their final consent to him, becoming a full-fledged MBO officer of the law. Right now, Endrik's plan was to get that from Gustav, since both parents were currently in the psychiatric ward, and their consent would be invalid. Endrik made a low sigh as he finally headed out of camp. There was still a kind of tension between him and Gustav, even though Gustav was starting to soften up to him, little by little. Endrik wanted to use this as a chance to get closer to Gustav and slowly drive away that tension by doing all he could to make sure Gustav trusted him. Will you be passing the vest to him? Endrik asked internally as he arrived within an aircraft. His forehead glowed green a couple of times as he heard a voice respond from within. Not yet. He is still too weak to equip it. The energy of the vest will destroy him at this state. Husaria spoke. Then when will he be strong enough? Endrik questioned. It won't be very long. He is slowly closing in on that volume of power that will be enough to equip or use some of the items. And when that time finally comes, the world will see a strength unlike they have ever seen before, Husaria stated. And more than ever they will need this strength to become their protection, because if they were to ever betray the source of this strength, a great catastrophe would be wrought unto the earth and the universe as a whole. Mendelega's planet swoosh, a silver streak cut across a region of red sands as two cloudy dark figures chased after the silver streak. Unlike the multitude of dark figures that had been chasing after this silver streak for over an hour, these two dark, cloudy figures were way smaller in comparison. These two were Mendelegas, who were elders, and they had finally decided to give chase. They would occasionally send out waves that would blast across the vicinity and wreak havoc. Angie had barely been able to escape the few times they used this attack. So far she could feel like her mind was getting slower and slower in thinking capability and reaction speed as a whole. Angie knew these two were using a type of ability that would get the better of her if she wasn't careful. Guys, I hope you're done. They're all heading back to the rock right now. Angie voiced through the communication channel. Dash, we got the device. We're trying to outrun the ones on our tail right now. The captain voiced out through the communication channel. Dash, we haven't found the two officers just yet. You guys can head to the checkpoint without us. We'll meet you there. Eldris voiced out this time. I am currently trying to outrun two Mandalogas who are still giving chase. Angie reported through the comms. Dash, how big are they? Captain Davidson questioned. 6 feet tall, Angie said while looking back in the process of running. Dash, you have to get them off your tail as soon as possible. Those are old Mandalogas privy to more powerful abilities. Use your highest speed and outrun them right now. Davidson voiced out with a tone of urgency. I am trying, ugh. Angie groaned while still speeding across the sands. I can't activate my fastest form. Chapter 10:27 Breaking Through. I am trying, ugh. Angie groaned while still speeding across the sands. I can't activate my most powerful form, she added with a look of difficulty. Dash, you can't outrun them? I thought you said you were fast. Davidson said with a slightly ridiculing tone. I can if I activate my fastest form, but it's like I feel a mental barrier stopping me from being able to activate it. I can't move at my fastest speed, no matter how hard I try. Angie explained. Dash, it's one of the older one's abilities. Angie, you need to distance yourself further away from them as soon as possible or you'll weaken and get slower over time. Captain Spark voiced out. How do I do that? I can't outrun them right now. Angie responded with a worried tone. Dash, you have to do something that can help you get further away from them. Eldris spoke this time. Angie turned her head to the side and looked over her right shoulder. The Mandalogas were still chasing after her with the same speed and were only about 20 feet away. Angie turned to look forward and could see that they were approaching an area with rocky, buildings everywhere. Her eyes squinted as she made a plan in her mind and sped forward. I still have a little spark. I could make use of it here, she said internally as she sped into the air of rocky, buildings. Fly high. She leapt forward with her legs outstretched and kicked through a building. Bang! The Mandalogas quickly followed behind her, but the instant they did, a silver-colored energy blast was triggered from within. Boom! It sent forth destructive waves that caused the entire structure to come crashing down along with the structures in the vicinity. The Mandalogas had cloudy-like figures, so they weren't too affected, but this slowed them down a bit, especially with the structure collapsing and causing the air to be covered by red-colored debris. The entire vicinity had become clouded by the red dust everywhere. So this made them lose sight of Angie for a bit, especially with her intense speed. HNNNGHHH. Angie groaned as she sped away from this particular area. Fwyi! She suddenly leapt into the air, once more as another horn began growing out of her forehead. This time was a bit different as her legs transformed into a silver-like color with scales all over, from her feet up to her thighs, had expanded in length, and claws grew out of her toes. Angie suddenly felt intense power radiating from within as her horn began to glow up along with her pupils. I just reached the echo rank, she noticed internally. Angie now understood the reason for this, her transformation. Bang! The instant she landed on the ground and took a step forward. Zyish. Her body bolted forward with intense speed, sending a blast of shockwaves from her previous position. Fweckish, Angie had never moved this fast in her life, as she crossed over 600,000 feet in an instant. The Mandalogas behind were unable to give chase anymore, as the speed was way beyond their limit, and how fast Angie had been moving before. Even when they flew higher into the air, they realized she was long gone. So on another part of the Mendologa's planet, a vortex opened up, and a group of 4 jumped out of it. "I think we finally managed to get them off our tail," Captain Davidson voiced out. "I made us appear way further from our initial location, since you mentioned we could still navigate our way back to the checkpoint, even if I didn't know where we would resurface," he voiced out. "Guys, this place is a bit..." Elevra voiced out as he looked around. They all looked around as well, and could see cracks on the ground. Purplish liquid flowed from the south to the north, and it looked like they were on an open ground. The whole place looked a bit eerie. "We're in a pit," Elevra stated as she looked around as well. "A pit?" Davidson voiced with a tone of disbelief as he turned around. There was a very high wall up ahead that reached more than 10,000 feet high. It was very rough-looking and had cracks all across it as well. This wall extended farther towards the left and right. One could see that it kept extending as far as the eyes could see, and at a point, fog could be seen in the distance that made it difficult to tell where the wall ended. "We could just climb over this, and the wall doesn't necessarily mean we're in a pit because of how high it is unless it surrounds this entire vicinity, and I don't see it up ahead," Davidson voiced out. "Well, I do," Elevra said in response as she turned to stare at him. Davidson's eyes widened as he spotted the horrifying purplish growing eyeball on Elevra's forehead. "Where did that come from?" he voiced out with a shocked tone. Elevra had pulled off the scarf covering her forehead the moment they arrived here. Elevra's eye ability helped her see through the fog thousands of feet up ahead, so she knows what she's talking about, he voiced out. "So we're in a massive pit," Captain Spark voiced out with a slightly troubled tone. "Hold on," Davidson voiced out and checked the holographic screen appearing above the device in his hand. "We have to go this way to get to the checkpoint. We're a bit far, but we can get there in a day, so we still have time," he added while pointing at the south. The wall they could see was right in front of them, while they had to move in the direction of the one in the distance, according to Elevra. "Should I open a vortex?" He questioned. "Nah, it's unpredictable where we will end up spawning unless you want to take us back to the places you've already been, like the target location." Captain Spark didn't have to continue before everyone knew it was a bad idea. "Or can you take us to the route we traveled on when we were headed to the target location?" Spark questioned. "Out of range," he responded while shaking his head. It turned out it was too far from their previous location, and opening a portal close to the area of the rock structure was a bad idea, since the entire place would be crawling with Mendologas. Scria, a loud screeching sound, suddenly reverberated across the vicinity, causing them to be on the alert. "We're not alone," Elevra informed them. "Mendologas?" he questioned. "No. These are beasts," Elevra said while her eyes squinted. "We have to get out of here," Captain Davidson voiced out. "Not without getting past them," Elevra said while fully activating her bloodline abilities. In another part of space, Gustav was seated in the spacecraft as he kept counting down. "We'll be there in another 30 minutes, Gustav muttered. "Your body should be durable enough to withstand part of the temperature, but don't get too close if you don't have to," the system voiced in his head. "Sure. I just need to get a sample after all," Gustav stated. "Srira, maybe I should check on Miss Amy one more time before I head to my death," Gustav voiced with a low tone before activating God Eyes. Life signs tracking has been activated. He used life signs tracking instantly and picked Miss Amy's life sign. Is she asleep? Gustav wondered as he spotted a smooth pair of thighs blocking his view. He couldn't see properly, but he could spot a little part of arms crossed and knees joined. It seemed like Miss Amy was laying on her knees with her head on her arms that were crossed and her arms balancing on her knees. Surprisingly, Miss Amy was only wearing shorts, so her smooth thighs were on display. Only to Gustav anyways, because he was the only one that could see this. "Cough, cough, I shouldn't be seeing this," Gustav said internally as he subconsciously closed his eyes. However, with life signs activated, closing his eyes would not stop him from seeing through Miss Amy's forehead region. After staying for a few minutes hoping Miss Amy would wake and look around, Gustav decided to deactivate God Eyes after only seeing her twitch a little. At least she's fine. Cough, cough, I should deactivate this now, Gustav decided. Just as he was about to deactivate God Eyes, Miss Amy's thighs began vibrating. At first, Gustav was confused as to what was going on, but then Miss Amy woke up at this point. She separated her thighs and stared at the ground. Through this, Gustav was able to figure out that the ground was quaking, which in turn made Miss Amy's body vibrate. What is going on? A land quake? You're tuning in to the Mystic Fist YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.